Sir, you're charged with especially aggravated kidnapping. You're also charged with aggravated assault, and you're charged with theft of a firearm worth less than $2,500.
You're talking about stuff that is not relevant.
Hello and welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict, and boy, do I have a case for you today.
Why is the dog chewing on this guy?
I think they have got the wrong guy there.
They got the wrong guy. The dog was biting him.
He roughing him up quite a bit. There's a lawsuit.
9 out of 10 judges prefer watching the Recovery Addict live stream in their court.
The fireworks are not done.
Now we're getting commentary on the case.
Is that correct?
Dati mihi Anglican police,
That is literally not true.
Oh, for Trump's sake. I didn't ask you to interrupt me.
Welcome back to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict. I'm looking frantically for Kim R in chat because I forgot to pin her message. Kim, where you at? Show yourself. There it is. There it is. Kim, congratulations on being first in chat. You are our internet winner. Early before I even announced it, you had popped over there. Just missed a phone call from one of y'all. Don't know who it was. Welcome. Kim, internet's all yours. If for some reason, let me turn that out. If for some reason you're not able to fulfill your duties, Jen Christie just reminds you that you can always dump it on her and can pass everything off to her. So, Kim, you're going to do great. Thank you very much for being first. Broke my leg today just in time to finish trial without distractions. A few days late, but we'll catch up at 1.5 speed. Latvian homestead. There it is. It took a while to get there. You don't have to do that. You can just watch. You don't have to. It helps to be injured. I mean, other people will buy the excuse that you just have to sit and watch YouTube now, but you don't have to do that. You can just watch and be here. That'd be great. I'm so sorry to hear you broke your leg. Selena's like, why would you do that? She did the same thing. All right. Jen, I got demoted already. She says I got demoted. I got somebody calling in right now. Who is it? Is this Angela?
Call from Angela.
Hello, Angela. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing good. I may have some insight as to the line of questioning on the redirect.
Okay.
The whole ethics questions. As you may know, the contact to Karen. Don't hate me for this, please. First, let me say this.
Share your
opinion. Let me start with that.
I've got veggie fries to munch while you're talking. Go ahead.
Yeah. The defense team contact information is public information, and I used it to send something that I learned in the class, and that is ethics, research ethics, and then it got me to dig into ethics for expert witnesses. And boy, what I found. But that's not the point. You'll probably hear it on the reclass if we get to that. And I sent two main articles regarding expert witnesses and their ethical rules to the address that I found in the public information. I guess the defense read my email and then decided to use it because Brennan asked those ethics questions.
So it's your fault. I'm just kidding. That's awesome. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that's why I said don't hate me for saying that. Because I did. I know some people doesn't know, but actually you can see there is on several fronts that you can find. That's how they even got all the tips regarding firefighter that is friends with Albert and or McCabe. You know who I mean, and so on.
Yeah. So you passed on the ethics questions that apply.
Yeah. ethic rules.
Good
Ethic
work.
rules.
Good work.
Yeah, but because I don't know if it applies to Ian, but I know it definitely applies to neuroreconstructionist and Dr. Crosby.
So, so thank you for sharing that. I'm not mad at you at all, not the slightest bit. As long as you don't mention the channel, we're good.
I mean the people in chat, because I know some people have strong opinions. Yeah,
we all like to think our opinions are right. So that's how we are.
Yeah, but I think that no matter which side you are on, ethics needs to be followed.
It is.
I mean, that's why there are.
It's so important to me in this case particularly that even if the state were to prove without a doubt, find video evidence that showed the entire thing that Karen did in fact hit John and leave him there and did everything they're alleging. If they also padded the case, like to sprinkle additional taillights somewhere where it shouldn't be or something like that. If they did anything like that, I believe should be found not guilty, because it's more of a problem for me that the law enforcement follow the law and follow the proper procedure than one criminal be held accountable for their actions.
Yeah.
The ethics are very, very important.
Yes, and in all fields, not just research, and like we all have, as a teacher, as a YouTuber, as whatever your field are in, we all have a set of ethic rules that we have to follow.
Yep.
Even as a grocery bagger, everyone.
You have to say paper or plastic. You can't just choose for them. You have to. No, just kidding. Yes, it's important. It's important.
Yeah.
Your credibility is on the line, but more than that. Once you lose that trust, it can't be regained easily. It's yeah. Anyway, great talk.
Yeah.
Glad we had this little talk. Do we like a veggie fry? I can eat this one in your honor.
Yeah, you can do this. Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Ethics are more malleable on the East Coast. Hey, I live on the East Coast. Which witness are you looking forward to today? I'm always looking forward to the next one on the stand. I'm curious to see how the prosecution is building their case, what the next brick is, the order they go in, why they go in that order. I think we're very close to seeing the end of Ian Whiffen. We're close to being done with him. And next up, we've heard, is Jen McCabe, which makes sense based on all the predicate that's been laid, the foundation that's been laid on that. So that's going to be very interesting. It's another one we can compare the testimony from the previous trial to this trial and see. I got the hiccups now. See how it changes or doesn't change. Both would be quite interesting. Chat rules of ethics are fluid, says Greenas. Let's see. We're barely moving. We are. It's going slowly. I thought it was going to be right after lunch, and Mr. Whiffen's taken a longer time. Defense took a long time. Mr. Alessi took a long time with Mr. Whiffen. And they got to go in most of the areas they wanted to. The only place they didn't get to really go was that elevation test that he did where he drove the route with the phone in his hand on Sunday to see if he could make it look like it was walking. Well, I said that wrong. Not to make it see it if it would look that way, but to see if it would register walking when he was holding the phone in the car. And I'm curious if he was the one driving and holding the phone. Is that legal in Massachusetts? I'm just asking for a friend. Whiffen got a whipping. I don't know. I think he held his own as well. He was nervous on the stand, as anyone would be, facing Mr. Alessi. But he was confident throughout on his answers, meaning he believes in what he's testified to, even though he might be nervous up there testifying. Do you think we'll see the demo after lunch? I don't think so. I think if this demo comes in, the defense might have a good argument to bring in the testimony about the other demo he did, or the other test he ran. I think it might open the door. They might have already opened the door to it. with the testimony that Mr. Whiffen gave, that when he, when he sees results like this and he comes up with a theory of what caused the results, he likes to test them on his phone. And he does that with all his experiments, he says, with all of his testing. That we've got the elevation data coming in, and they wanted to talk about the testing he did with that phone. I think they might have opened the door already if the defense jumps on it. Alternate juror, I think I think pretty much everyone who testified in the Karen Reed trial initially did not understand the scope of the interest in the trial and how much it would be analyzed and picked apart, not just locally, but nationally and even internationally. So I think they're more aware this go around. They're thinking about it a little bit more. So I think, yeah, it is going to be a little bit different. What do you think about the Google search? You're a tech bro. Let's hear your perspective, at least after we've heard both sides. I think Mr. Whiffen explained it very well, much better than the first trial. It makes sense. And more than that, they've been able to test it and replicate that's how it works. They not only that the testing, they can make an entry appear with a previous timestamp by using an open tab in Safari on an iPhone, but combining it with all the other log data of where information was stored and when it was stored and the timestamp for that, it makes sense. And the state's theory, as far as the how long to die in the cold, for that rings true for me. Did anyone talk about the phone under warm body? Vicky, they did a little bit. The state wanted to go there more and sort of got shut down, but it was brought up. It was enough that we talked about it in chat. I think the question was asked and objected to on redirect, but I think the jury's definitely heard that or has that idea in their head. Did he say if a new search updates the time of the open tab? Yes, the time the tab is opened, where that log was that has the 236, the timestamp for that is when the tab is opened. And then the search content, the last thing that was on the page, is reported when that tab is closed. So when the tab is closed, it uses the opening time and the last thing that was on that page. And that's what made it all click together for me. All right. Moonfox Studios, welcome. We need to get you in green so you can take a seat. Just a little late, but we haven't started yet for this afternoon. Mr. Whiffen should be right on the tail end of his testimony, if not like virtually done. Depends how much recross. Well, I guess the state might have a few more questions to ask him, and then how much recross the judge will allow. Too much doubt in this case for me. Thank you, Jay Ling. I'm hearing that, or I'm waiting to hear a little more testimony. So maybe some of that doubt might be cleared up one way or another. I'm just grumpy because we haven't had any solo cups or leaf blowers yet. Teresa, that day will come, and it will be beautiful, and we're going to have a good laugh, and hopefully you all bring your red solo cups for the occasion. Recross will take forever. It always does. Yes, but round 2 should be quicker. This would be round 2 of recross. I guess recross is always round 2, at least. I have my popcorn and phone on silent for Jen. I'm being optimistic. I'm excited for this trial. I'm excited for both sides for what they bring. I think the options are still all on the table for both sides of how this will shape out. All right. Makes sense to me as well as someone who works with badly behaving software all the time. One of my duties when I worked for the federal government was working with software called Splunk. And if you want some software to scare you to death, look at Splunk. Look at what it can do. Imagine if you were able to take, I don't know, every item that has a little computer clock or internet connection or Wi-Fi signal, and and look inside its brain, its memory, and download every registered action or every action that device took, and just dump it into a big bucket and shake it a little bit and have tangible results come out. Results that tell me that I can tell from you connecting to your computer at work, from home and then at work, if you sped to work that day. Things like that. And you think, how in the world would your computer tell me if you sped to work? Well, I can geolocate the IP address of where you connected from home. I can calculate the fastest route between your home and work. And if you got to work and connected before it was logical for you to get to, possible for you to travel that route without speeding, I can conclude that you sped to work. There are things like that Splunk can do, and it can put together little pieces of information that are breadcrumbs that look like they totally don't exist together, but once mixed all together and compared and put on the same timeline and everything, it's very, very powerful. And the state's basically done that in this Karen Reed case very effectively. Quantum Wi-Fi connection. I tried to integrate Splunk at our company once. It's very expensive, Greenos. Their front end is like dirt cheap, but if you want it to start doing the processing, that gets expensive, and the data storage and the search heads, it starts adding up fast. And if you get somebody, a Splunk user who's out there just putting a bunch of queries in, they can run up your bill in a day. All right. Canceled everything to watch the experts in Jen, says JD DeWolf. She was a Viper last trial. She had some vim to her. She definitely did. Can you repeat your opinion as to the Google search? Do you think that she searched at all at 227? I think she opened the tab at 237 and looked at Hockomock Sports. That's what I think she did. And girls soccer or something, and then went to the high school, the local town family login page for the school, which has schedules and information about the schools and everything. That's what I think she did. And then she opened up her phone again in the morning and did the Haslong, or how long to die in the clicked, and then Haslong to die in the cold searches in the morning. That's what I think she did. All right. Was Jen's husband the one butt dialing? Wait till you get the butt dial testimony. I think that'll probably be next week. That's my gut feel. Next week we start getting into the butt dials, and that's going to be fun. U.S. Navy veteran lawyer retired. Welcome. Thanks for clicking the subscribe button. We call that admitting that you're an addict, but the fact that you were a lawyer, you already knew that. Welcome. Where is Adam? I don't know. He changes his name so often. He could be here and I wouldn't know. Adam was in here with a new name. See, Lois. It's hard to follow. Let's see. The kids are very loud. The kids pulled the electrical wire, and then they stapled everything, but they forgot to pull the right lengths, so they have to unstaple everything. And, yeah, it's going to be fun. Sydney, we're still early on this part, because we haven't had the testimony yet in this trial of the injuries specifically. I think we need more of that before we can sort of form an opinion there, especially for this jury. I will say that the phone data we heard through Mr. Whiffen has convinced me that his phone lay in the yard all night and was not moved until the morning. It's possible that he could have been in the house but I can't account for how the phone then got from the house to the front yard without it registering any movement and not being powered off, because it was still powered on. The phones are so sensitive. If you tear into the details of it, it would have exited pocket state, or, if it rotated and the light turned on or something, there's going to be some sort of significance. Or if his body was picked up and carried, that still is somebody walking with the phone. It would have shown steps coming from the house. And if it was in the back, in the bunk doors, the entry to the back, the cellar doors thing, that's further to walk. It would have shown those steps of being moved, and it just wasn't, which shows that, to me, he was in the front yard, or at least his phone was. I mean, he could have gone inside, but his phone was in the front yard, and then his body later was found on top of it. All right. Where did the 84 steps come from? The 84 steps on the timeline show that it happens the 3 flights of stairs. And that was while the car was in motion. We have timestamp data from Waze showing that the car was driving at 19 miles an hour at the same time his phone is logging steps. And the position puts it, far away down the road and around the corner. So that was, I agree that the phone has logged steps. I've done it with my own phone. In traffic, it's reported that it looks like you're exercising. I'm sitting in the car. You've traveled this far so far. Do you want to log this? Yes, I do. Count it as exercise. Did John have an Apple Watch? No, I think it was just a phone. Will iPhone register steps if it's on something, though? I know I can swing it around and not count steps. I'm just curious about that. When you say on something, sidebar and chill, like what? In what way? If it's holding still.
You are unmuted.
Jurors are entering.
Jurors are entering. Here we go. No decision announced yet on the crash, Danny. No, they often report at the end of the event.
Please be seated. Court is in session.
All right, Mr. Brennan, go right ahead.
Mr. Whiffen, I'd like to ask you a couple of general questions.
Yes.
You mentioned, with reference to location data, that the scope of identifying a location of a phone can change depending on what information the phone is receiving.
I'm sorry.
Yep. Rephrase. You've shown us a number of graphs and exhibits that show different circles. Some might be smaller, some might be larger than others.
Yes.
And you shared with us that location information is being received from a number of different sources.
Yes.
Can you remind us again what can affect that location data as far as receiving some high accuracy, mid, and low level? What could affect the receipt of that information?
So primarily the requesting application defines how accurate it needs the data. iOS Location Services then determines the best technology to use in order to work out that location. And it can use GPS information for the most accurate. It can use Wi-Fi cell sighting, so it understands the Wi-Fi networks that it can detect close by, and it knows where those networks are, and from that it can derive where it itself is. Similar idea with both Bluetooth beacons and with cell tower technology. It understands where the cell towers are, it understands where the Bluetooth beacons are, and if it can see those particular cell towers or beacons, it knows roughly where itself must be.
You share with us there are some factors that can affect that location data.
Yes.
In addition to being in a building, like a house or a business, that's one way it can be affected?
It is.
And there are other ways as well, isn't there?
There are.
And could you share again the other ways that location information could change?
Yeah, the weather can play an effect on it. The geography of the area, whether it's in a rural or urban environment. Other kinds of interference. If there are other items close by that are emitting electrical interference, it could affect the location data as well.
How about a body being on the phone? Could that affect location data?
Objection, Your Honor.
Ask it differently.
If a human being was covering the phone so it wasn't exposed to the air, could that affect the location data?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow it.
I believe it could, yes.
I'm not seeing that data.
You were shown Exhibit 40. It was one select piece of your report. It was
Let's
a
look at
graph.
this real quickly.
With the court's permission, I'd like to show Exhibit 40.
Yes.
This is for Ghost. It's the timestamp's off on what you say. I'm not seeing it.
Exhibit 40 has two circles, one darker, one white.
Yes.
And do you remember being asked questions about this particular exhibit?
I do.
And in addition to this exhibit, is there other information in your report that wasn't shown to you that would put this in context?
There is.
This exhibit is to demonstrate a window of when location data was taken for a particular time.
Objection, Your Honor.
Watch the form of the question.
Okay. This photograph, what does it represent?
There were two particular time periods of approximately 5 seconds where multiple records showed identical latitude and longitude. So the same center point of the radius, but the radius themselves differed. So in this case, the white circle or the white circles show the lowest accuracy and the highest accuracy for 5 records that were all within a 5-second time period. And that shared the same latitude longitude as the central point.
Looking at this snapshot of 5 seconds, is this still consistent with your opinion that to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, you opine that the cell phone was in the flagpole area the entire evening of January 29th, 2022?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow it.
Yes, it still aligns with my opinion.
When you provide a report with all the different graphs and explanations, do you expect it's going to be shared with the defense attorneys?
Of course.
And you understand in this case everything is shared?
Of course.
And when you shared your report with this piece of information, did you include a summary chart that wasn't shown to you on examination?
I believe I did, yes.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes.
Showing you your
Thank you.
report. Do you recognize your report?
I do.
And what page are you on?
22.
Do you recognize anything in particular as far as a chart on that page?
I do. There's a chart at the top with the location data that was used to create the image shown.
Does that chart help explain this photograph?
It does.
And move that chart into evidence.
Any objection, Mr. Alessi?
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you.
With the court's permission, I'd like Ms. Gilman to show us the chart.
Yes.
How long of a time period does that photograph encompass?
The photograph has got 2 time periods of 5 seconds each, which are approximately 40 minutes apart.
And what does this show us? Can you explain the chart that goes along with that photograph that was shown to you?
So this chart is, or I should say, the map shows 5 of the records from this particular chart. But we can see that all of these records have a consecutive timestamp 1 second apart. The latitude and longitude is identical for all of these records, but at the same time, the accuracy drops from 43 meters to 7 meters within that same 8-second time period. the idea was to demonstrate that if you had one of these records on its own, if you only had the 43-meter accurate record, for example, then the phone could be anywhere within that 43-meter radius. But as time goes on, the accuracy is refined. The same central point is used by iOS, but we've now got an accuracy of 7 meters. And again, if we were to say that the phone is anywhere within that 7 meters, it's a much more accurate representation, according to the data, than the 43 meters would be. And with an 8-second time period, if the device was actually moving during that time, I wouldn't expect to see the latitude and longitude remain exactly the same. There'd be some degree of movement in the coordinates.
When you're producing location information in the circles that represent the location change, small, medium, large, at different times, does this chalk help represent that there can be changes in the location data, but the item can remain dormant?
So ask that differently, Mr. Brannon.
What is the exact point of the demonstration or this chalk? How does that help us understand the movement or the lack of movement of a cell phone?
So I believe it demonstrates the fact that the phone is constantly refining the location data or the accuracy of the location data, even though it's using the same central point, the latitude and longitude, as the reference point. It doesn't necessarily mean the device had to move.
If I could go back to Exhibit 40, please. So looking at your photograph that you were asked about, there are 2 different circles, one dark and one light.
Yes.
And those circles are in different spots.
Yes.
Based on the chalk, or the chart you just showed us, are both of those different color circles consistent with a phone being in the same spot and not moving?
The previous chart that was shown only accounts for the white circles on this map. And it only shows the highest and the lowest accuracy. 20 minutes later, there was another similar scenario where there were multiple records with the same central GPS coordinates, but with different accuracy levels, and that's what was used for the black circles. Importantly, in my opinion, they all overlap, so it's possible that the device is somewhere in between those 2 circles for the duration of the time.
Now, finally, I want to turn back to the phone that was attributed to Jennifer McCabe. And you had shared with us your opinions about the time in which the searches at 623 and 624 were made.
Correct.
And I asked if you could just show us live right now how it works that a person can open a tab, and there's a timestamp, a time when it's open, and then make a later search but still retain the original timestamp.
Yes.
Is that something you can do for us?
It is, yeah.
Okay. With the court's permission, I'd ask Mr. Whiffen to give us a live demonstration.
Okay. This is
Do you want the light off?
the final nail in the coffin.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dave.
Final nail in the coffin
Okay.
for...
First of all, I will highlight on the left side of the screen here, this is actually a live representation of what I have on a phone that's in front of me. So as I move this around, you can actually see on the screen that the screen refreshes. I'll also point out the iOS version here is 15.2.1, which matches that from Jennifer McCabe's phone. On the right side of the screen is the tool which I spoke about earlier, the one that I've been writing for several years. I make it available for free for any examiner who wants to download it and research primarily iOS devices. Here you can see I've got a live connection to the device. So every file and folder that is on the device I can see within this directory view as you would normally see on a regular computer. And we can see the browserstate.db database. If I open that database up, you can see there are 4 tables, one of which is called tabs.
Mr. Whiffen, I hate to interrupt you. Can we make this larger? I know jurors earlier were hoping
I can try to
have a larger view of what's up there. Is that going to impact your demonstration in any way?
It shouldn't. I should be able to work around it. Thank you.
Is that better for the jurors?
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Make this just a little closer so we can hear you in the back.
Let me pull forward.
Thank you.
Turn the air conditioning on.
So at this moment in time, the tabs table has 2 records. I'm just going to ask you to ignore those for now. They're from a previous demonstration. I can't delete those without taking longer to do this demonstration. If I go back onto the phone itself, just takes a second to refresh, and open up Safari, and I can open up a new tab. What I will just do now is search for the time that we're on now, so 14:10, and hit go. So right now that page is loaded, sure, and I can go back into the database and just hit reload. That will bring the most recent version of the database from the device back onto my computer and show it back in this window in exactly the same way as I was viewing it a second ago. And you can see right now there's still only 2 records. So the fact that I did a new tab and a new search has had no effect on what I can see. This is different to on previous versions of iOS, where you would already now see a new record with the 14:10 search which I'd made. I'm then going to do another search. Hopefully it's going to catch up with me. It's now 14:11, so I'll do a search for 14:11. Okay, we can see the page is loaded, and I can go back over to this tool and reload the database. We still don't have a new record that shows that a search is being conducted. I'll just take the time to do another little search and just do 1411X. Reload the page again. Still, nothing's appeared. I can even close down Safari, just minimize it into the background, and then bring it back into the foreground by just pressing the Safari icon. I can hit reload again. We still don't have a new record, and I can do a further search for now 1412.
Now would be a good time to have a 1411X product out there on the market.
1412 is loaded, and I can reload the page. Still no records present. I can now go into Safari and just close the tab. So now that tab is closed, and I can just prove that. So that tab is now closed, and I can go back over here and reload, and you'll see a new record has appeared. I'm just going to change the time zone just so that this shows accurately, and tell my tool to treat the timestamps as Eastern time. So we look at this particular record. You can see the title is 1412. That's the last item that I searched for. You can see the URL is the google.ca /search 1412. Again, that is the content that I searched for. And then we see this field here, the last viewed timestamp. And the time here still says 1410 because that's the time that I first loaded the tab.
Boom.
The fact that I navigated between, the fact that I minimized and reopened Safari bears no relevance to this timestamp. It is purely the timestamp that tab was created or brought back into focus.
To an untrained eye, can that development of a timestamp become confusing?
Yes, the name last viewed time clearly has implications that would make you believe that it was the time that the page was last viewed. It's a very simple test that I just demonstrated to prove that that's not the case.
Is there any other reason that Celebrite removed that process of timestamp other than to clarify that issue?
Objection, Your Honor.
No, I'll allow it.
Purely because we determined it was unreliable to use as a time that the page was last viewed.
If an examiner simply made a report from Axiom or Celebrite or another software but didn't have the time or skill to actually go into the data, could they be easily confused by this?
Yes, the way that Celebrite provided this information showed as last viewed timestamp. The way that Axiom provides this data is called last interaction time. So there is some leeway there to misunderstand it less from Axiom because it's talking about tab interaction rather than a web page that was last viewed.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
All right, thank you. The lights on, please. Mr. Alessi?
That was a subtle jab.
Your Honor, if I may.
If an examiner didn't have this skill or experience, they
Do
would
you
be
want Mr.
misled.
Whiffen to take this down?
Yes, please, Your Honor. Good afternoon, and hello again, Mr. Whiffen.
Good afternoon.
Magnet forensics axiom still shows a 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp on its forensic tool, correct?
Correct.
And Magnet Forensic is a reliable forensic tool company, correct?
As reliable as they come, yes.
The demonstration that you just performed, when did you create it?
The demonstration?
What you just...
Like literally just now as I was doing it live.
So you
is how
just
you mean?
created the demonstration now live on the stand?
That particular demonstration, yes.
Yeah. So, that demonstration, therefore, was created after Celebrite removed the 2:27:40 timestamp from all of its tool programs, correct?
No, incorrect. I mean, that demonstration that I just provided was right now, it was live. Initially, when I did these tests, I did the same kind of experiment, the same type of testing, back in late 2023, I believe. And after I did those tests and used that research, that is when Celebrite removed the timestamp.
Maybe my question wasn't clear. Let me
Yes.
see if I could rephrase it. The demonstration that you just gave, when did you prepare it? The demonstration, not just the demonstration that you just showed on the screen. When did you create that demonstration on your computer?
Hey, again, I've been doing this demonstration for 2 years.
My question, again, is the demonstration you just gave.
Yes.
When was the last time you altered that demonstration?
Other than to use different search terms, it's the same demonstration.
I'll try to differ.
Yes, please.
When was the last time you altered in any way the demonstration you just gave?
Right now.
So you altered it right now, and that alteration was made after Celebrite had removed the 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp from its programs, correct?
Yes, okay.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Whiffen, you are all set, sir.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
May we be seeing why Mr. Whiffen is collecting his items?
Jurors, feel free to...
Sorry. Mr. Alessi, I don't think that rehashing that point carried the same weight that the demonstration did in the minds of the jurors. I think that demonstration was very clear in how that tab is stored. The explanation that Mr. Whiffen gave regarding why Celebrite changed their programming, it's as if I come from the tech world. Okay, every single time you get an update on your phone, it's like, hey, new versions. You've got a security patch, right? We've got a new version. You need to download the new upload to the latest version because there's a fix. He literally is recounted and said, we found a bug. We found an error. We found something where the machine was reporting one thing and it was wrong, and we fixed it. And Mr. Alessi wants to point out that you changed it for this trial just to delete it. It's like, well, yeah, this trial informed us of the bug. But I think that was an effective demonstration for the jury. Lynn Godwin, member for 14 months. Hello, chat. Recovery Addict. Samantha Terry just got back from the Caribbean. Rested, relaxed, and tanned, but I miss this channel. Glad to be back. Why didn't you take us with you, Lynn? I object. I object. Never been there. Let's see. Ashley says, not just new versions. They misinterpreted the data previously and fixed it. They assumed a certain data meant X when it meant Y. Update fixed that. Yeah, and saying, but the other guys still show that. Like, they do, but they call it something different now. Interesting. We are trying to look at it from the jurors' point of view here. The jurors don't know what happened last time. We have that benefit. We have that memory. We have the videos we can go back and watch and compare testimony from. But they just know what's happened in this court. All right. DMB second is member for 28 months. Another OG. OGest of the OGs. The long journey to the final courthouse continues, DMB. You will get here first before anybody else. Thank you very much for your support. Love it. 28 months. Do the jurors know there was a previous trial? They do now. It's come in many, many times. Here's Mr. O'Keefe, his mom, John's mom, sorry. Shouldn't they have notified law enforcement, et cetera, of the errors and how many people were convicted using that data? Wendy, I'm not sure if anyone was. This is like cutting edge as far as phones go. The phones are constantly evolving and getting better, and law enforcement is constantly trying to catch up and use the data to use it in their trials. I don't know of anyone who was convicted for that reason. Like specifically, it says that I searched for something at this time when really it was later. I don't know if aside from an ICAC type situation, I'm not sure where a conviction would rest on that sort of evidence. Let's see. Yeah. They've had so much they've dealt with. I'm curious. I might see if I can get his software. Let's see what's on my phone. Who do you think will cross Jen? Jackson was great last time. It's going to be somebody who can be aggressive, because they are going to get aggressive. They are going to. Defense needs there to be reasonable doubt here, and this is our first peek into that home, and our first view, into what happened, what was going on inside while something was happening outside. I think they need somebody aggressive, and so that means that if you're not a fan of a lawyer who is going to challenge the testimony of a witness, be prepared to not like the cross-examination that comes up. Mrs. R.A. Hydrophone. She doesn't have a phone. She's one step ahead of me. She does not have a cell phone. Should be Jackson because he triggers her. I don't think they're trying to trigger her specifically. I think maybe they might try a different approach and try to get her to say something they want her to say, as opposed to, catch her trying to not respond to a question. Yannetti on cross. I like Mr. Yannetti's cross. Rebecca Hayes, welcome to the gallery. Brand new member. Thank you very much, Rebecca. You're one of us now. You can never leave. You're among friends. Rebecca, make sure you type !seat in chat. We've got reserved seating for members, so make use of that. I can probably tell you she will not be calm. And I can't blame her, honestly. I try to look at it from the individual's point of view, and I don't blame her at all if she's the next witness up for not wanting to be here. Jenny in Georgia says, I think we'll see a different Jen today. Cheryl Ann, I think Jen McCabe is one of the witnesses that Turtle Boy is not allowed to be in the courtroom for. I haven't seen him here today, so he's been here previous days.
D for identification.
Thank you very much. Your Honor, may I call my next witness?
Please.
Call calls Jennifer McCabe.
There she is. Miss Little moves a box of stuff. I think that's the previous witness. That's the Ian Whiffen file. Get your goat ready.
Face up quick and raise your right hand. You shall swear the evidence to give the court the jury in the case down here the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you.
Good afternoon. All right, Mr. Flynn, whenever you're ready, Ms. McCabe, I'd ask that you pull the microphone closer. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Go right ahead.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Hi, I'm Jennifer McCabe, M-C-C-A-B-E.
Ms. McCabe, how old are you?
I'm 49 years old.
Are you married?
Yes, I am married with 4 daughters.
Without detailing your children's names, can you tell us a little bit about your family?
Sure. I have 4 daughters that are 16, 17, 19, and 21. 2 are in high school and 2 are in college.
In raising your children, was your family active in local sports?
Yes. All 4 of my daughters played multiple sports from when they were young. 2 now are playing in college. My husband and I both coached them. My husband coached them from when they were young up through 8th grade in soccer, and I coached them in basketball.
Without telling me your address, what town are you from?
I'm from Canton.
How long have you lived in Canton with your family for?
I was born and raised in Canton, and now I'm raising my family there.
So your family, their whole life, you've raised them in Canton?
1 year we lived in Stoughton with my daughter.
Who do you live with now?
I live with my husband and my 4 daughters.
Can you briefly give me a little bit more background on your children's school and your participation in interaction with your children, raising them?
Yeah, so I was a teacher, and then once I had children, I stayed at home with them and basically was just kind of like your typical, I don't know, small town mom. I was the room parent. I coached them.
No, I'll allow it, but why don't we?
Yes.
When I coached, I drove the kids back and forth on my team, would take them places, etc.
That was a relevant subjection.
In the growth of your family and raising your children, at some point did you meet a gentleman by the name of John O'Keefe?
Yes.
Share with us meeting John O'Keefe.
Sure. When my 3rd daughter was in kindergarten, she became friends with John's niece. And during that kindergarten school year, unfortunately, Kaylee's mother and father both passed away, and John moved in the house and became Mr. Mom.
When John took over guardianship of the children, did you assist in an active role in helping him?
Yes. Kaylee and my daughter were very close, so she would come over and play. My daughter would go over there. Kaylee would come and have sleepovers. A lot of times it would be on Friday nights. I would have Kaylee, and then another individual would have Patrick.
Had you known John O'Keefe well before he took over guardianship of the children?
No.
During the time when he was the guardian of the children, did your relationship, not just with his niece and nephew, but with him, grow any closer?
Yes, we became very good friends.
How close of friends did you become over the years?
Well, throughout the years, obviously, when they were younger, we talked more, just about the logistics of CCD, pickup, drop-off, basketball, sports. But then he would also call me, about, as the girls got older, the girl drama, or, the hormones and things like that. He would also come over, and hang out and have a beer and, just talk about whatever was new in his life or going on, or, just the day in and day out struggles of his, life, and raising the kids now and figuring it all out with, work and family and all of that.
Leading into January 28th of 2022, so the jury understands, how close is your friendship with John O'Keefe at that time?
He was a very good friend of mine that I knew I could call for anything.
I want you to take us forward to January 28th, 2022. Do you remember that day?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember it well?
Yes.
Take us to the early morning hours, January 28th, 2022. Did you learn there may be weather or a storm coming?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
We all saw the report that there was going to be a big storm, a nor'easter. So we all knew that basically all the Saturday activities were going to be canceled.
That includes sports?
Yes.
Was and is the sporting events for the children a big part of your life?
Yes. Back then I had, 2 in high school that played 3 sports, and they played club sports as well. And then the 2 middle school played club sports and town sports. So most of our weekends were taken up by kind of running from one sporting event to the next.
When you learned about the weather and the change in schedule, did it change your plans for that day?
No, not particularly. I had my day was pretty set out. I had my niece, and then I had sporting events. It was kind of my plans for the next day that obviously got changed.
Take us through the afternoon of the 28th. What's happening?
Well, I had my niece for the week, and she was picked up. My oldest was on the hockey team, and she was having a team dinner at the house, so I picked up pizza, got desserts, set it up for them, and then I left with my daughters and my husband, Matt, and we met some of the parents from the high school basketball team at a local pub to grab a bite and a drink before the basketball game, because my other daughter played on the high school girls basketball team.
What time was the basketball game set for that night?
I believe it was 6 or 6:30.
Did you and your family go to the game?
Yes, we did.
After the game, what happened?
After the game, I drove my daughter home. My sister, Nicole, sent me a text and said that she was going to be at the waterfall, and it was my nephew's birthday. He was going to meet up, and did I want to come by for a drink?
What is your nephew's name?
Brian Jr.
It was his birthday that night?
Yes, it was.
When you received a call to meet with friends and family at the waterfall, do you remember what time that plan was made?
I don't. My sister sent me a text at some point letting me know she was going to be there, so I don't know what time.
After the game and after some time, did you go to the waterfall to meet your friends and family?
Yes, I did.
Describe very briefly, what's the waterfall?
It's just a local town bar.
Do you remember about what time you got to the waterfall?
About 9 o'clock.
When you got there, was there anybody there that you knew?
Yes.
Okay, now take us inside the waterfall. When you get there, who do you see?
I walk in and I see Julie and Chris Albert, my niece Caitlin, my sister Nicole, and my niece's boyfriend Tristan.
You said you saw Julie and Nicole Albert in the waterfall?
Yes.
Were you related to either of them?
Nicole is my sister.
So Brian Sr. would be your brother-in-law?
Yes.
Also, you mentioned there was a niece?
Yes, Caitlin.
And is that Brian and Nicole's daughter?
Yes.
You mentioned the name Tristan. What's his relationship to your niece, to Brian Albert's niece?
He's now her fiance.
And was there anybody else I missed?
That's all who was there. I'm not sure if Nick Kolakidis was already in there when I got there or if he arrived right after. And then his wife joined us.
So when you're in the bar and you see your friends, what do you do next?
I immediately just, join them and sit down.
Were you eating, drinking?
I know I ordered a beer. They had appetizers on the table. I'm not sure whether I had any or not.
Were you drinking alcohol that night?
Yes.
As you're spending time with your family, did the night grow?
Yes.
Did you stay at the table where everybody was eating, or did you move inside the bar?
We were pretty much right around the table.
Okay. Did anybody you knew join you or join the group at some point?
Yes, a little while later, Brian Albert and Brian Higgins joined us at the waterfall.
So when you first got there, was Brian Albert already there?
No, he wasn't.
Is that your brother-in-law, Brian Albert?
Yes.
And you said Mr. Higgins. Did you know Mr. Higgins?
I had met him a few times when he was out with Brian.
You had met him a few times before that night?
Yes.
Were you friendly with him?
He was a friend of Brian's.
Was he your friend?
No, he was Brian's friend.
You knew who he was?
Yes.
So when Mr. Albert and Mr. Higgins joined the group later, did they come directly to you, or did they stay somewhere else inside the bar?
No, they came over to our table, I believe.
How long were you in the waterfall for that night?
Approximately 9 to little around midnight-ish.
About 3 hours?
Yes.
Do you have an estimate how many drinks you had, alcoholic drinks you might have had?
I don't. I don't know. Okay. Maybe 2, 3.
Throughout the night, were you feeling any effects of the alcohol?
23 or 2?
Not that I recall, no.
2 or 3.
When the group was together, you mentioned a number of people have joined. Were you joined by other people later?
Yes.
Who were you joined by later?
John O'Keefe and Karen Reed.
And you talked about your relationship with John O'Keefe?
Yes, earlier, yes.
Did you make plans with him, or did he just show up?
I believe he had started the conversation about the night with Chris Albert.
Okay. Chris Albert is a different Albert than Brian Albert?
Yes.
What's the relationship between them?
Brian Albert and Chris Albert are brothers.
Was Chris Albert there when Mr. Higgins and Brian Albert arrived?
Yes. Actually, Chris, did I miss him? Because Chris was there with Julie. Did I? I'm not sure if I said that when I was naming everyone at the table. I apologize.
You may have.
Okay.
So when you first got there, he was at the table with your sister?
Yes, he was.
When moments before John O'Keefe arrived with the defendant, what was the mood in the group?
Cheerful. Good mood. Everybody was just out having a drink. We all knew the storm was coming tomorrow, and, you know, just a typical average night.
Celebratory?
Yeah.
You said you were going to see Brian Albert Jr. for his birthday. Was Brian Albert Jr. at the waterfall when you got there?
No, he was not.
Was Brian Albert Jr. there anytime when you were at the waterfall?
No, he was not.
Without relating a conversation with some other person, did you have an understanding where Brian Albert Jr. was?
He was at home.
Did you historically or typically see Brian Albert Jr., your nephew, on his birthday?
Yeah, typically we always, get together. We try to and do a cake for whoever's birthday it is, and then whatever, aunts or cousins are around come over.
When John O'Keefe arrived at the waterfall with the defendant, do you have a general estimate or guess, not guess, but a general estimate of what time they arrived?
Approximately 11.
When they first arrived, did you see them?
Yes.
Where did you see them coming from?
I saw them walk in.
When they walked in, did you react in any way?
Yes, I was happy to see them.
Why were you happy to see them?
Because I loved John and I liked Karen.
So you were happy to see John?
Yes, very.
And you were happy to see the defendant?
Yes.
Do you remember your first interaction with either John or the defendant that night inside the waterfall?
I believe John walked over to where I was, kind of to my end of the table, and then maybe Karen had walked to the other end of the table. But I would assume I probably hugged both of them when I saw them.
I'm going to ask you not to assume. If you don't know, that's okay. You said that you had known the defendant as well.
Yes.
Do you remember how long she had been dating John O'Keefe up until that point?
I know I met her in July of 2020.
Had you had a chance to spend time or interact with her over that time before that night at the waterfall?
Yes, I had.
And share with us some of the moments or some of the reasons that you would interact.
The first time I met Karen, John had reached out. We would do pool days with him and his niece and his nephew. So he had told me he was dating a new girl and he wanted to bring her over. He said that she had multiple sclerosis. I also have multiple sclerosis. So he thought that that would be something we could, we would talk and bond over. I said, yeah, great, bring her over. So her and John and Kaylee and Patrick came over. We had a pool day. I liked Miss Reed immediately. I thought we hit it off. It was really great, talking to someone my age that also had MS, because I didn't really know a lot of people who have it. So it was really nice to have somebody to relate to. Then moving forward, we would see them, if it was my daughter's birthday party, when it was time for pickup, they would come in, have a couple drinks. Same thing for like a Halloween party, after basketball games.
So you spent time both with John and Miss Reed?
Yes.
Did you spend time with the defendant separately without John around?
No.
Did you become friendly with her?
Yes.
And were you friendly that night?
Yes.
After John and the defendant enter the bar and you greet, did you interact or spend time with Miss Reed at the waterfall?
Yes, I did.
And speaking of the defendant, do you recognize her here in the courtroom?
Yes, I do.
Could you kindly point to her and describe an article of clothing she's wearing?
She's sitting right over there with a black shirt or blue.
Is she between Attorney Jackson and Attorney Yannetti?
Yes, she is.
When you were at the waterfall that night, do you remember who you were speaking to or where you were spending your time?
As to earlier in the night or after?
I'm sorry, after Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant arrived.
Yes, Miss Reed came over and spoke to me because I had seen her the Saturday before, and she had told me how she had started a new medication, and it was giving her some awful side effects. And I said, I'm shocked they put you on that, etc.
Let me not ask you about conversations you
Okay.
had, but about the moment that you were in. Did you spend time with Miss Reed that night?
Yes, I did.
Inevitably, did you drink more alcohol as the night went on?
I believe I had, like I said earlier, a couple of drinks, 2, 3, not sure.
Did you ever have a shot of alcohol?
I do not believe I had the shot, no.
Did you see the party, the group of friends and family doing a shot?
I was in the bathroom and walked out, and they were doing or had just done a shot.
With the court's permission, I'd like to display parts of Exhibit 22, which has already been introduced into evidence, which is video surveillance footage from the waterfall.
Okay.
I'd like to start at 10:54:20, please. If you could just stop for 1 second. Do you recognize what's in that video?
Yes.
And what is that?
That is the waterfall.
Okay, kindly proceed. If you could stop. Do you see the two people entering from the left?
I do.
Do you know who they are?
I believe that is Miss Reed and John O'Keefe.
Ms. Gilman, is there any way to enlarge the top of the video where the other people are closer to the table or bar? No. Okay. Looking at this video, can you tell or identify anybody under that timestamp?
Do you want me to do it?
And if you can't, that's okay. But if you can you tell us who you see?
I think the guy right there, well, where she just is Brian Higgins.
Okay. If you could go up a little bit, Ms. Gilman.
I believe that's my husband, Matt. And
On the
then
right?
On the right, and I think that's me on the left.
Okay.
I can see
If
that.
you can go down the table to the left, Ms. Gilman. You recognize who that might be from the clothing?
I'd have to take a guess that
Okay,
it could.
don't guess. It's okay if you don't. Anybody else at the table more to the left do you recognize?
Not from this picture.
Ms. Gilman, could you highlight where Ms. McCabe thinks that she is on that video with that circle you just had and play the video?
Apparently not both at the same time.
you could stop. Is that you clapping, Ms. McCabe?
Yes, it is.
Why are you clapping?
Because I was happy to see them.
Both of them.
Yes.
We were doing charades, and I got the word
Can
seal.
you continue, please?
Hugs to the husband.
And who's that person walking right to left hugging people?
That is John O'Keefe.
Can you continue, please, Ms. Gilman?
Can you zoom in on the band?
Are you interacting with anybody?
I can't see where I am.
Okay. If you could stop the video, please. Could you move ahead to 11:26:50, please? 11:26:50. Is that your group still at the waterfall?
Yes, it is.
If you could stop there, Ms. Gilman.
The band
If we
has gone
could
home.
hone in or circle where you were previously, where we saw Ms. McCabe. I know it's a bit blurry. If you can, and if you can't, please let me know.
It's worse when
Can
it's
you see
highlighted.
whether you're in that area?
I believe I am, yes.
Could you put the circle down just a little bit, Ms. Gilman?
Circle makes it so much
Now, if you could
worse.
play from 11:26:50 to 11:27, please. We're a little bit ahead right now.
Hugs.
Who are you hugging?
Karen.
I believe that's Miss Reed.
Thank you. One more, Ms. Gilman. I'm going to
see
ask you to
now.
move forward to 11:46.
20 minutes later. The band is taking all the equipment. Here's to
Could
driving.
you pause, Ms. Gilman? Could you circle in that same area where Ms. McCabe was last describing? Can you make anything out in this video?
Not now.
Yes, it looks like they're all, toasting or doing a cheer before they do a shot.
Can you see whether or not the defendant's in that part of the video?
Yes, it looks like she is in front of the man in the plaid coat.
Were you participating with the drinking at this moment?
I don't see myself in the video. I don't believe I was.
But you were drinking separately that night, weren't you?
Yes, I was drinking beer.
If you can continue, please.
Bottoms up. All right, give me the keys.
Thank you. Shortly after the shot, was there conversation about leaving the waterfall as a group?
Yes, there was.
Was there any discussion about where the group should go?
At first, Miss Reed was asking if we could go up the street to D&E.
What's D&E?
D&E is a sub shop that's owned by Chris Albert.
Was it open that late at night?
No, it wasn't.
Had you in the past gone to that pizza shop after hours to eat?
Yes, we had.
And tell us what the defendant was saying?
She just kept asking, can we go up to D&E? Can we go up to D&E? She wanted just to go up and, Chris makes food and then we were going to go all, she wanted us all just to go up there and eat and hang out.
That wasn't an uncommon occurrence for the group to sometimes go to that pizza shop after hours, was it?
No.
Did the group decide to go to the pizza shop?
They decided they weren't going to go.
Okay. Was there a different plan made?
Before Brian Albert left, he said to the group, hey, you know, we're going to go back home and have a beer with Brian Jr. If anyone wants to come by.
When you received the invitation to the group to go back to Brian Albert's house, did you decide whether you were going to go home or go back to your sister's house?
Yes, I decided I was going to go to my sister's house.
Without saying what was said, was there any discussion in the group among the participants about going back to your sister and Brian Albert's house?
Everybody seemed to want to go back.
She's answered.
Did anybody object to going back?
No.
Had you been to your sister's house before?
Yes.
Many times?
Yes.
Do you know the address of where your sister lived?
Yes.
And so, after that conversation, did you stay at the waterfall for a little bit, or did you leave immediately?
Probably left after maybe 5-10 minutes.
Without saying what was said, before you left, did you have a chance to speak to John O'Keefe?
I did, yes.
You spoke to him inside the waterfall?
Yes.
Did you have a chance to speak to the defendant?
Yes.
And was your plan to go back to your sister's house?
Yes.
Before you left, did you have any understanding whether or not Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant were going to join you?
Objection. Did you have another understanding regarding that?
Yes.
And what was your understanding?
They were coming.
Who else was going to go back to your nephew and your sister's house?
Brian Higgins and my niece Caitlin.
A little after 12, did you leave the waterfall?
Yes.
Do you remember that night leaving?
Yes.
Before you left, did you talk to anybody in particular?
Yes. Miss Reed and then Mr. O'Keefe.
Did you speak to them inside the waterfall?
I walked out with Miss Reed and we spoke at the doorway, and then John joined us.
Did you invite Miss Reed to come with you?
I did, yes.
Did she decline?
Yes.
And to come with you?
I did, yes.
Did she decline?
Yes.
And who did you go to your sister's house with? Who drove?
I drove, and I went with my husband, Matt.
Anybody else?
No.
Do you remember what time it was that you were speaking to Miss Reed about going to your sister's house?
After midnight.
If I could have Exhibit 22 again. Ms. Gilman, if you could take us to 12:10:36. Okay, if you could stop it there, please. Did you have a chance to talk to Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant outside of the waterfall?
Yes.
And do you know specifically what time you left the waterfall?
It was after midnight.
After, okay. When you left the waterfall with your husband, you said you were driving. Did you stop anywhere along the way before you got to your sister's house?
No.
Tell us what you see when you get to your sister's house. What are the weather conditions like as you're driving there?
It's starting to snow to the point where it's starting to like accumulate. It's on your car. It's just, you know, getting on the street.
Is it light? Is it heavy?
It's light at this point.
How long does it take to get from the waterfall to your sister's house?
5 to 8 minutes, depending on lights and weather, etc.
When you first get to your sister's house, while you're still in the car, describe what you see.
My wipers are on. I'm just looking out the window, and it's snowing. It's dark.
Anybody in the driveway? Any cars in the driveway that you see?
Oh, when I pull up to my sister's?
Yes.
As I pull down the street, I take a left into the driveway, and there is a Jeep that's parked on the street, and there's maybe a couple of cars in my sister's driveway.
What do you do when you arrive at your sister's house?
I go in the house.
Now, there are a couple doors at your sister's house?
Yes.
Is there a front door?
Yes.
Is there a side door?
Yes.
Which one's closer to the driveway?
The side door.
Which door do you go in when you get to your sister's house?
The front door.
Was anybody with you when you went in?
My husband, Matt.
You walked in together?
Yes.
Tell us the first person you remember meeting.
When I went in the house?
Yes.
Probably my niece was at the table, and then I saw my nephew, Brian.
Was there anybody else you saw at the table?
Julie Nagel and Sarah Levinson.
So when you walk in the front door of the house, is it what table? Is this a living room table, a kitchen table?
Oh, you walk in and then you go to the right and it's into the kitchen and there's a table there.
Is the kitchen separate from the living room or is it open?
It's open, but they're separate.
Can you see the kitchen table when you walk in the door if you turn and look right?
Yes.
And when you go into the kitchen, you said there was a woman by the name of Julie Nagel?
Yes.
And then another woman, Sarah?
Yes.
You know her last name?
Levinson.
Okay. Julie Nagel, did you know her when you walked in the house that night?
I had met her a few times.
Had you spent time with her? Were you friends with her?
No, I just had met her a few times, and she had watched my dog for me when my nephew couldn't.
When you would go away, would your nephew be responsible to watch your dog?
Yes.
Did you understand that Julie Nagel had watched your dog a couple of times?
Yes.
Had you ever socialized with her before that night?
No, I may have seen her at a graduation party, but never beyond that.
Were you friends with her at that point?
No.
Friendly enough that she watched your dogs?
Yes, through my nephew. He just said my friend's going to do it, and I trusted his judgment.
And there was another woman by the name of Sarah. Did you know her before you saw her that night?
I knew of her. If I were to see her, I'd say hi, but that's the extent of it.
How did you know of her?
Just from being in the town, going to different sporting activities, and just being around.
You said your nephew Brian was there as well in the kitchen?
Yes.
This was his birthday?
Yes.
How old was he?
I think he was turning 23.
Was there anybody else in the house when you and your husband first got there?
Yes, my sister and Brian Albert and Brian Higgins.
So Mr. Higgins, Brian Albert, and your sister were there before you?
Yes.
Where was everybody when you first came in?
My niece Caitlin, Sarah Levinson, Julie Nagel, and Brian Jr. were all at the kitchen table. My sister was over, I think, cleaning the counters, and Brian were off in that TV room that you can see from the kitchen because there's a wide opening.
If you walk in the front door, would I look left or right to see the TV room?
You'd look right to the kitchen, and then through the kitchen's the TV room, but you could look, and when you walk in, you can see because it's open.
Is the TV room in any way have a relationship with that side door?
Yes, it does.
If you were to walk in the side door, would you be walking into the TV room?
Yes.
Okay. When you saw your nephew Brian Jr. and his friends, are his friends about the same age as him?
Yes.
Were they drinking?
Yes.
Was there music?
Yes.
And when you went in, did you spend time with the group?
Yes, I sat right down and started talking to them.
And when you were speaking to them, did you have any drinks that night?
I believe they brought me over a White Claw, but I didn't have more than a sip of it. I really wasn't. It was at that point where I just didn't want another drink.
As you were in the kitchen, were you expecting anybody else?
We had mentioned it to Karen and John, and I had actually just spoken to John, so I was expecting them.
So when you saw John O'Keefe in the waterfall, that wasn't the last time you spoke to him?
No.
You had spoken to him, was it on the ride to your nieces? To your sisters?
Yes.
Did you call him or did he call you?
He texted me and I believe asked something like, where to? And since I was driving, I called him.
When you called him,
AJ's taking
what
notes
did
for
you tell
Cross.
him? What did you guys say?
I just said they live 34 Fairview Road off of Chapman.
Do you know if John O'Keefe had ever been to the Albert home before?
I don't believe he had.
In that conversation, how long did that conversation take?
It was quick.
Was there any other conversation that you had with him other than that one conversation?
Yes, he called me back and he was trying to find it.
Trying to find the address?
Try to find the house on Fairview.
Did he ask you for help trying to find the address?
I'm not sure his exact words, but yes, he needed help. And so I just said, I told him, just go down the street, go by Bella's house. It's at the bottom of the street.
So you used Bella's house as a point of designation to try to guide him to get to your sister's house?
Yes.
Tell us who Bella was to John.
Bella is my daughter and John's niece friend. So Bella is friends with my daughter and John's niece.
Okay. And was there any relationship between Bella's mother and John that you knew of?
Okay.
All right, quick little turn of the head. Objection. Poland Spring Water is the brand of choice in this courtroom. It is the local bottler, I guess. Natalie O to Energized RA. I'm feeling great. I'm trying to keep an eye on chat and follow this as well. Watching for any subtle looks or anything in this testimony, because I think that's what we're watching for during this one. I would say that Jen McCabe so far has come across. Look at this like a new jury, right? Who's never met her until this moment. She comes across as very honest, very willing to participate. That she's a good witness so far. Sloth Life Inverted is Ifiltals. I don't know how to say that. Sloth Life is backwards. That's what it is. Welcome. And thank you very much for gifting a membership. That's super generous of you, Sloth Life. We won't get to cross today, says Teresa. I think you're right. We're already at 3 o'clock, and we have not even begun the early morning hours, let alone got through the party and people leaving and everything else. So Kelly H. gifted a membership as well. Thank you, Kelly. Kent Daigle, you're the recipient there. She's coming across very well. I think the jury she's easy to follow. The questioning is a little bit slow, but is following a logical pattern. I think it's interesting the 2 to 3 beers, and then I didn't drink the next one, and no, I didn't take the shot. So we'll see. I'm not a drinker. I don't drink, so I don't know how normal it would be to sit at a bar and drink 2 to 3 beers with friends. Is that a believable 3-hour stint? Commonwealth questioning is slow and soft. Wait till AJ gets up, which might be tomorrow. Some of you are saying that's normal. Some of you say, no, not normal at all. Love to see the bar tab. I wonder who paid for that one, if everyone was separate. Canton. I do poke a little fun at them because it does seem like everybody was drinking and then driving. And individually, you talk to people and everyone says, oh, I was good to drive. I hadn't had that much. But you know, when in their own testimony, they're not drunk, too drunk to drive, but everyone else is. So they are mostly cops there as well, so that that adds to the situation. Song Chef, she's a whole different person in this second trial compared to the first. Right, she doesn't come across as angry yet, and I think if I remember correctly, on the first trial, we saw some of that anger in her. She is instead, she had an opportunity to emphasize, and I used to like Karen Reed. She could have got a jab in. She did not. She said, I loved John. I liked Karen. And so we gave hugs. There's opportunities where she could have got a jab. I think she's measured herself here. We'll see how she does on cross, because that's definitely going to be an opportunity for her as well. If she changes her demeanor, what that does to the jury, it doesn't mean automatically that they're going to discount her testimony and say, well, clearly she's biased. But they'll be able to weigh that, and that's one of the things they'll consider. It's like, whoa, It's like we got a different witness here for cross-examination. That'll be interesting. She's coming across better. And it could be that she's just not nervous like she was the first time. That could be a big part of it. It's like, I've been through this. I know what to expect. I know what's happening. The first time anyone's in court, it could be a bit much. How close was the last shot to closing? I think she said within about 10 minutes or so, people were leaving. Guy in the back row is chugging the whole bottle. Chug, 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 chug. I'm a big fan of that myself. She's a college professor, and they make good money in teaching at the college level.
Thank you. May I?
Yes.
That second phone conversation you had with John, do you know about what time that was?
I don't. It would be after 12:15, but before 12:30, approximately, between that.
Were you still driving when you had that conversation?
Yes.
And at some point you told us you arrived at your sister's home and went in?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to move forward now to when you were inside the house. Tell us generally when you first got there and saw everybody, what were you doing?
I just sat down at the table. I started talking to them. We were listening to music. Typical night.
Okay. Anything stand out as far as music or interaction with the group?
It's raining men.
No, we were just laughing, telling stories. At one point, I'm not sure if it was at some point, my other nephew had been over my house and had shown me this video on his phone, and it was a family inside joke. The video, it was a music video from a long time ago. And so I was telling my other niece and nephew, oh my gosh, you have to see this video. It's hysterical. And then we started playing it and watching it.
What was the video?
It's Raining Men.
There it is.
Did that get a lot of playtime during that get-together?
Well, I have one sister who sometimes has a little too much to drink, takes out an umbrella, and will dance. So it's a family joke.
While you were at your sister's house, what area of the house were you spending time in?
Yeah, I was in the kitchen.
What was the mood of everybody in the house, as far as you remember?
Everybody was in a great mood.
Was there any fighting?
No.
Any arguing?
No.
Any violence?
No.
Was it a celebratory mood?
Yes.
As you were in the house, were you waiting for anybody else?
Celebratory or celebratory?
Yes, I was expecting John and Karen to come.
At some point when you're in the kitchen, or let me ask you a little background. As you're in the kitchen of that house, can you see outside from the kitchen area?
They had blinds or something down, but if the blinds were up, you could see out.
Were the blinds up?
No.
At any point were you able to see outside from inside the house?
From the front door, yes.
Does the front door, is it glass?
Yes.
At some point when you were with everybody in the celebration, did you have a chance to look outside?
Yes.
And when you looked outside, what did you see?
I saw a dark SUV out front.
Did you know whose SUV that was?
I believed it was Karen's.
Could you see who was in it?
No.
At that point of night, what does the weather look like from the front door?
It's dark and it's snowing, and I could see, brake lights.
Did you see if that SUV moved at all?
I didn't see the SUV actually move, but I saw it in a few different locations.
How many times did you look out?
Can't give you an exact number of how many times I looked out. I can tell you I saw the vehicle first straight out from the front door. Then I saw it up at the flagpole, and then I saw it further up from the flagpole.
Were you studying the car at all?
No, it was quick glances.
Did you have any reason to study it?
No.
What were you expecting was going to happen?
I was expecting John and Karen to come into the house.
Did they ever make it in the house?
No, they did not.
As you were waiting, were you doing anything else in addition to waiting for them to come in?
Yes, so I was sitting at the table. Someone made mention of a car out front, so I got up, went to the door, looked out, and then I would go back to the table, and where we were just all laughing, talking, playing music, you know, just hanging out, not really thinking much about anything.
Did you ever reach out to John when you thought the car out front was the defendant's car with John in it? Did you ever reach out to him?
Yes, I did.
How did you reach out to him?
I texted him.
Do you know if there was a phone call that was made to you before 12:30? A 7-second phone call?
From John?
Yes.
I don't.
You mentioned you had spoken to him about directions. Is that the last time you heard his voice?
Yes.
When the car was out front, did you exchange text messages, or were you simply texting him?
I was texting him.
Do you remember what you were texting him?
The first time I said here.
What do you mean by here? Was that
Like
exclamation point?
hair question mark, because that's when I saw the car.
You were wondering whether that was him?
Yes.
Did you send any other text messages that you can remember?
After I saw the car move locations, when I saw it go up to the flagpole, I said, pull behind me.
And do you remember any other communications you had with him? Was he texting you anything?
No.
Did he ever text you again that night?
He never texted me again.
Never called again?
No.
Did you continue to text him over the next 15, 20 minutes?
I did, yes.
And so at some point, did you realize that John O'Keefe and the defendant weren't coming in the house?
Yes, when the car was gone.
Did you ever go outside through the storm down to the flagpole to speak to them?
No.
Why not?
Why would I?
I was just asking. All right.
I had no reason to.
So when you were in the house, at some point, did you notice that that car was gone?
Yes.
Were you marking the time or keeping track of it?
No.
After you didn't see the defendant's car anymore, did you stay?
Yes.
How long do you think you stayed for at the house?
I stayed till about around 1:30, 1:45-ish.
Did anybody else come in the house up until 1:45?
No.
Did people leave at certain times?
Yes, people did leave.
Who was the first to leave?
Brian Higgins.
Do you remember about what time he left?
I don't.
And after Mr. Higgins left, do you know who left?
I'm not I believe it was us, and then my niece Caitlin was also like at the door. It was kind of in a row. Brian left, and then a little bit later, I think it was, myself, Matt, Julie, and Sarah left. But Caitlin was at the door. I believe she was waiting for her ride.
How much longer after Mr. Higgins left did you leave?
Maybe a half. I honestly can't say. I think he was there for a while I was there. So maybe he left anywhere from 15 minutes, approximately 15, 20 minutes before I did, or maybe a little more.
You mentioned that you had left the waterfall after midnight?
Yes.
And you had phone calls with Mr. O'Keefe along the way?
Yes.
Do you know that there are phone records with your text messages and phone calls in them?
Yes.
And do you know whether your phone records reflect the time of your calls with Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes.
And your text messages?
Yes.
When you were texting Mr. O'Keefe, when the Lexus or the car was in front of the house, rather, was Mr. Higgins still there?
Yes.
What are some of the things that everybody did along that night before you left? What happened in there?
What happened inside the house?
Yeah.
Nothing. We basically just sat around the table, talked, laughed, listened to music, chit-chatted.
Celebratory?
Yes.
Was there ever any fighting?
No, none at all.
Any arguing?
None at all.
Any physical interaction?
No, none.
When you decided to leave that night, did you say around 1:45ish?
Yes.
Okay. When you left around 1:45, was there any events that happened that night that would cause you unrest or excitement or your heartbeat to raise?
No.
When you decided to leave, you and your husband, where were you going to go?
We were dropping off Julie Nagel and Sarah Levinson, and then we were going home.
Had you planned on dropping them off earlier in the night?
No, when we got there, Julie's brother had pulled up to pick them up, and
I won't ask you what was said because you weren't there.
Oh, okay.
At some point, did you come to an understanding that you would give them a ride home?
Yes.
Did you offer?
Yes.
Who was going to drive home between you and your husband?
Matt drove home.
When you left, I want you to describe as you step out into the driveway or the walkway. Was it the front door or side door, if you remember?
I walked out the front door.
Is the weather like it was when you first got there?
No, it's picked up.
Tell us what you mean by it's picked up.
So as I walk out, you kind of go, the walkway is to the left. So I walk down the steps, I go to the left. The snow was coming, it was cold, the wind was picking up. So I kind of just like curled up and ran to my car quick to get in.
What part of the car did you get into?
Front passenger.
Who was driving?
Matt.
And where were the other two people?
Sarah and Julie were in the back seat.
Who was in which spot?
I'm not exactly sure.
So both of the young women were in the back seat?
Yes.
Was there any conversation when you got into the car?
We got in the car and they were teasing me.
Why were they teasing you?
Because I had like bread and maybe peanut butter in my car.
Why did you have bread and peanut butter in your car?
I had my niece for the week, and I was dragging her like to all my kids' sporting events. So we'd go from like one game to another game to a practice. So sometimes instead of always giving her McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts, I'd try to throw her a peanut butter sandwich.
And they were making fun of you?
Yeah.
As the car backs out of the driveway, tell us what you're doing.
I'm talking to the girls.
You just moved your head.
Yes.
Does that mean anything?
Yes.
Tell us.
They were both sitting behind me, so I was like turning and, chatting and talking.
After your husband pulls out of the driveway, do you start to drive home?
Yes.
If the house is on my right and you're driving, are you in the passenger seat closest to the house or furthest away?
Passenger seat closest.
So you're driving, if you look at a picture of the house, you would be driving from right to left?
Yes.
Okay. So as you start to drive, or your husband starts to drive the car, what direction are you looking in, if you remember?
The back seat.
Did you drive by the front of the house, do you know?
We pulled out of the driveway and went up Chapman.
Okay. And your husband and you passed by the front of the house?
Yes.
Did you pass by the flagpole?
Yes.
Were you looking at the flagpole?
No.
And how dark was it at that point?
It was dark.
Snow?
Yes.
As you're passing the flagpole, do you hear or see anything remarkable?
No, I'm not really paying attention. I'm just chatting to the girls, and Matt's just focusing on driving.
When you're talking to the girls and they're making fun of you, what's the mood in the car?
We're all laughing and joking.
Where do you go next?
We drive Julie Nagel home.
After you drop off Miss Nagel, where do you go?
We drop off Sarah Levinson.
Is the weather constant?
Yes.
After you drop off the young woman in separate spots, where do you go?
We went home.
Can you tell us when you get home what happens next?
We go in the house. I go up to bed. Matt makes himself a snack and then joins me upstairs.
Do you have a telephone?
Yes.
An iPhone?
Yes.
When you go to bed, do you stay up at all?
Yes.
Do you use your iPhone?
Yes, I do.
What were you doing?
I texted a few people, and then I did a couple of Google searches.
And what were the searches for?
One, my daughter had played in a basketball game earlier in the night, and it was a very good game, so I went and I read the report on it. And then my other daughter had an offer to play on a basketball team, so we had to make a decision about whether or not we were going to accept the spot. So I was just looking up that basketball club.
Other than those regular searches that one would do, was there anything remarkable about what you were searching at 2:27 that time frame?
No.
After you were looking at websites for your child's sports, what did you do?
I put my phone down and went to sleep.
And up to that point, had there been any discord or fighting or arguments in your world?
No.
Peaceful night?
Yes.
Did you go to sleep, Miss McCabe?
Yes.
Did you sleep through the night?
I typically get up to go to the bathroom, so that I could have gotten up possibly to go to the bathroom.
Did anything remarkable happen in the early morning hours of January 29, 2022 that changed that peaceful mood into something else?
Yes.
Okay. I want you to share with the jury the first thing that happens that changes everything.
At 4:53, my phone rings, and I look at my caller ID. I look at the phone, and it's Kaylee, John's niece. John's niece. And I say hello, and she said, yeah, well, basically, she relayed to me that.
Next question.
When you pick up the phone, could you hear a voice on the other end?
I heard a voice and a lot of screaming.
And the voice you heard, is that Kaylee, John's niece?
Yes.
And the screaming, was it a man or a woman screaming?
It was a woman.
How loud was that person screaming?
Very loud.
Could you make out anything that person was saying as they were screaming?
My name was screamed a lot. And then the other individual ended up getting on the phone with me.
Okay. And who was that person that was screaming in the background?
Miss Reed.
How long was she screaming for while you were speaking to your niece before you spoke to her?
The entire time I was speaking to Kaylee, she was screaming.
Describe her demeanor.
Miss Reed's?
Yes.
Jen! Jen! And then she's screaming that John didn't come home. She left him at the waterfall. She was hysterical. It was very hard to follow what she was saying.
How long did that first call last for?
I'm not sure how long, maybe possibly a few minutes, but it was loud enough and long enough that my husband shot up in bed thinking one of my kids had come in the room screaming.
Without saying what your niece said, could you describe your niece's demeanor when you first spoke to her? I mean, John's niece's demeanor.
I would say Kaylee sounded concerned, uneasy.
Okay. During that phone call, other than the screaming and the screaming of your name, did the defendant give you any information other than she had dropped John off at the waterfall?
They had gotten into a fight. She had left him there, and he didn't come home.
And when you were woken up, were you in a sleep when you were woken up?
Yes, I was sound asleep.
What was your mental state like when you first woke up and got that call?
Well, I had been up late. I had taken my medication that I take for my MS, so I was definitely a bit groggy when I first woke up. So immediately I just wanted to help her. She was hysterical. Kaylee was upset. So I went into that kind of mom mode of what can I do? How can I help? So I immediately was like thinking, okay, well, if you left him at the waterfall, let me think who was still there, or, you know, how can I help you? How can we find John?
Did you have a plan when you ended that first call?
I did. I knew Chris Albert had still been at the waterfall when I left, so I thought if Karen and John had gotten into a fight, maybe Chris had walked out of the bar, and Chris lived local to the bar, thought maybe they walked back to Chris's together.
So what did you do?
So I called Chris Albert's wife, Julie.
Did you speak to her?
No, she never answered.
After you had a moment to make a phone call and think about things, did your head become any more clearer?
It did, and I was, reminded by my husband that we had seen Karen in John's car outside of Fairview.
When he reminded you, did you independently remember the text messages that you sent to John earlier that evening?
Immediately, I was like, oh my God, you're right.
Did you remember that you had seen what you believed to be the defendant's car in front of the house and near the flagpole?
objection, Your Honor.
Watch the form.
Okay. What did you remember? What came to mind after you spoke to your husband about your memory from earlier that evening?
The minute he said it, I remember seeing the SUV and then all the text messages that I had had and the phone conversation with John.
So after the defendant spoke to you and said she had left the defendant at the waterfall and you had time to think about your memories, did you react or do anything with that?
Yes, I believe I called Kaylee back.
Why did you call Kaylee?
I didn't have Miss Reed's phone number.
When you called Kaylee back, did you speak to anybody?
Yes, I believe Kaylee and then Miss Reed.
When you first spoke to Kaylee, could you hear anything other than Kaylee?
The screaming.
Was it any different, or was it similar to the first time you spoke by phone?
Similar to the first time.
Regarding the demeanor or intensity, had it changed at all?
Not at all.
You mentioned the first time that you had that phone call, the defendant was screaming your name. Jen,
Yes.
Jen, Jen. Was she saying your name in the second call, or was it just general screaming?
My name, and then when she got on the phone, I had told her, Karen, I saw you guys outside of my sister's house. And then she told me she didn't remember being there. And then she went on to say, she started saying, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? And then she just was just all over the place, like screaming my name, screaming so many different things. She was hard to follow or understand.
When she was saying to you, did I hit him? Could have I hit him? Was that before or after you informed her that you had seen her out front of your sister's house?
It was after I told her that. She also informed me that she had cracked her taillight.
In that conversation, she told you that?
In one of the conversations I had with her in my bedroom, yes.
When you told her that you had seen her out front, and she had said that she didn't remember that night, was that before or after she was saying, did I hit him? Could have I hit him?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
When she was telling you about that she didn't remember that night, was that before or after you had told her about seeing her car?
When I said I saw her at Fairview, then her response was she didn't even remember going there.
Did she ever deny that she came to Mr. O'Keefe's house? I mean, to your sister's house?
No.
When she told you or said to you, did I hit him or could have I hit him or something like that, did you have any idea what she was talking about?
No, I didn't pay attention to it.
When she told you that she had cracked her taillight the night before, did that have any significance at that time to you?
No.
So in telling you these different things, did you ever piece them together at that time?
No.
What was your primary motivation at that point?
I just wanted to help her because she was hysterical. Kaylee was very upset, so I wanted to help her, and I wanted to find John.
So after she told you these things about whether she could or did hit her and the light and not remembering, did the conversation end or did it progress?
At some point, I was then going into like, okay, well, if she brought him there and left him there, where was he? Because he never came in the house, and she doesn't know where he is, so now where could he be? So I started thinking there was another gentleman that was supposed to meet us out at the bar who John was friends with. So I thought, okay, well, in my head I'm thinking maybe they got into a fight, John got out of the car, and he connected with this guy because he was at a party on the street.
What was that person's name?
His name is Tom Beatty.
Did you call him?
Yes.
Did you get a chance to speak to him that night?
That morning?
Yes.
No.
Did you call around anywhere else?
I believe I called my sister, I called John, I called Tom Beatty, I called his daughter.
You called John O'Keefe's phone?
Yes.
Did he answer?
No.
Did it go right to voicemail?
I don't remember.
Did you text anybody?
I honestly don't remember if I texted. I primarily think I was just trying to call as many people as I could and try to figure out what happened.
So you had two conversations at this point with the defendant while you were still home?
Yes.
Was there any further phone calls that you had before you did something?
I'm not sure if I know I went downstairs to make coffee because my plan was to go with my husband. I said, come on, let's just go over to Tom Beatty's. Let's see. Maybe John's there. He passed it on the couch. I'm not sure if Karen called me again or not. It's a little foggy because there was so many calls and everything.
Okay. And so that morning when you're receiving calls, did something happen?
Karen showed up at my house.
How did you know Karen showed up at your house?
I could hear her screaming out front.
And about what time is this?
Approximately 5:20, 5:30. I can't be sure.
Were you worried for John at this point?
Not particularly, no.
Were you screaming?
No.
Now at this point, at this moment when you hear her outside of your house yelling, early morning hours, did you know a person by the name of Kerry Roberts?
I knew of her. I'd met her once.
Were you friends with her at that time?
No.
Had you socialized with her at that time?
No.
Had you ever seen her before with John?
Once.
Tell me about that.
Years earlier, as I said earlier, I used to take Kaylee on Friday nights, and Kerry was the one who would take Patrick on Friday nights. So we would each have the kids. And to thank us, one day John told us how he got a discount at Reebok and to get our kids' shoe sizes, and he was going to buy us all sneakers, just as a way to say thank you for helping. So we all went to the store together, and then John took Kerry and myself to the hillside for lunch.
How many years before this moment was that?
Oh, gosh. Well, I think that's when my daughter was in kindergarten or first grade, and at this point she was in 8th grade. So like 7 years.
Had you ever spent any other time with Kerry Roberts before this morning?
No.
Were you friends at that point?
No.
How would you consider your relationship with Miss Roberts on that morning when Miss Reed arrived to your home?
I had met her once, and that was the extent of it. I wouldn't say I knew her at all, beyond that one time I went out with her.
Okay, I want you to take us back now to when you first hear the defendant in your driveway yelling. When you hear that, do you hear any words, or is it general yelling?
So I hear yelling. So I was downstairs making coffee. I go to my front door and I open it, and she's screaming, Jen, Jen. She's screaming that 3 times, and then she was saying, we have to go to Fairview. You know, a lot of the, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Just, she was on repeat.
What did you do?
My husband came running down the hall and was like, tell her to shut up. She's going to wake up the neighbors. And then I said, I'm just going to go with her. I'm going to go look for John. And then he yelled down saying something like, you can't be driving around in this weather, you know, with a broken taillight.
When you saw the defendant at your front door, had the weather changed overnight?
Yes.
Was it different?
Yes, now the snow had intensified. It was almost like, it was dark outside, but it was like whiteout conditions.
How dark?
Dark. I mean, it was dark. It was like 5:30 in the morning.
What was the visibility like?
Not good.
After you meet the defendant at your door, do you let her in, or does she stay outside?
I'm not sure if I just grabbed my coffee and ran out,
Where did you go?
whether she came in. So we went down my walkway. She was just kind of running all around. The driver's door was open, so I told her I was going to drive because I thought she was too hysterical to drive. In the meantime, all of a sudden there was a car at the end of my street, and there was a plow behind it.
The car that came to the end of your street, do you know where it went?
I meant the end of my driveway, I'm sorry.
When you say the end of your driveway, did it pull into your driveway?
No, it just kind of stopped right at the base of my driveway.
Okay. How far behind your car was that car?
Not far, not too far.
Okay. Did you know who was in that car?
No.
Did you learn who was in that car?
Yes,
How did you learn who was in the car?
because I said, "Who is that?"
Did you ask the defendant, or did you walk
I
up?
asked the defendant, and she told me it was Kerry Roberts.
Did you meet Kerry Roberts face-to-face in your driveway that morning?
Yes, I wouldn't say we met. It was more of a, the plow was coming, so then she was having to like move down the street, and then either Karen called her or she called Karen, but they were on the phone, Karen's phone over the car, so they started talking.
Did you get into the defendant's car?
Yes, we did. I got in the car with Miss Reed.
When you got in the car, you were in the driver's seat. Was Miss Reed in the passenger front?
Yes.
You said there was an open call. Is this something you could hear on a speaker?
Yes.
At that point, had you had a chance to go and look at the taillight of that car?
No.
Did you have any interest in the taillight at that point?
No.
There was an open call between who?
Karen and Kerry Roberts.
Can you describe what you heard in that call?
Karen was saying that she wanted to go to Fairview, and Kerry Roberts was instructing her that no, we weren't going to be going to Fairview, and she kept saying, we got to go to your sister's house, and Kerry Roberts said, no, we're not going to be driving around in this weather in two cars. Let's go back to John's. Let's go to Meadows. Let's go see if he's there. That was kind of the conversation. And then Karen was doing a lot of screaming, and Kerry was kind of yelling back at her to shut up.
Who was taking charge of the situation that morning?
Kerry Roberts.
Were you in charge of it?
No.
Did you weigh in or make any decisions on where you were going to go next, or were you just a listener?
I just listened. Kerry said that Kerry's kind of a take-charge person. She said, we're going to Meadows. So I said, okay. I drove to Meadows.
Now, at this point, you didn't know Kerry Roberts other
No.
than that meeting?
Yes, correct.
And you agreed to follow her?
Yes.
So tell us what happens. Take us through the drive.
She might have followed me. I'm not sure, but we drove back to Meadows, pulled into the driveway.
So you knew where Meadows was? You had been there many times for the kids?
Yes.
You think Miss Roberts may have followed you?
Yes.
What was the weather conditions as you were driving?
They were awful. It was. I was driving very slow, cautiously. It was dark. It was hard to see. It was that type where the snow is like coming at your window.
How long of a ride was it from your home to John's home?
Approximately 5-6 minutes.
Was there any other phone calls while you were in the car with Miss Roberts, or did the phone calls end?
I believe that was it.
Can you describe the defendant's demeanor on the trip from your house to John's house?
She was just screaming, yelling things. It was almost like everything she said 3 times. And she just went from one thing to the next. She was quite hysterical.
Do you remember what she was yelling about?
About going to Fairview, asking, could she have hit him? Did I hit him?
How many times did she raise the question, did I hit him? Could have I hit him?
A good amount.
Did you ever speak to her about that?
No.
At some point, did you finally get to John's home?
Yes.
When you got to John's home, who pulled in the driveway first?
I did.
Where did you pull in respect to the driveway?
I just pulled straight in next to the garage.
Did you see where Miss Roberts went?
I believe she pulled in behind me.
After you pulled into Meadows, John's home, and you stopped, what happened next?
We go into John's house.
When you went into John's house, did you all go in the same way?
Yes, we went through the garage.
And before going into John's home, did you do anything?
Before entering into the house?
Yes.
I took off my shoes.
You took off your shoes?
Yes.
Why did you do that?
Because you always had to take your shoes off at John's. He didn't want you to track. He would have yelled at me for tracking snow in his house.
Did you see if Kerry took her shoes off or not?
I believe she did.
Did you see whether the defendant took her shoes off or not?
She just walked right in.
How would you remember that?
Because I thought it was strange.
What was your purpose when you went into the house? What was the number one thing that you were worried about?
We were looking for John.
Anything else on your mind when you went into his house?
Also, I knew Kaylee was there.
Now, at this point, did you have a close relationship with Kaylee?
Yes.
Do you still?
Yes.
What did you do when you went in the house? Where did you go?
I walked through the kitchen, and then I kind of peeked into the TV room. I walked through the dining room, and then before I went up the stairs, I kind of peeked into a living room. I went up to the top of the stairs. I peeked into John's room, and then I went into Kaylee's room.
Did you ever see John?
No.
Why did you go to Kaylee's room?
Because I wanted to go check on Kaylee.
Did you have a chance to speak to her?
I did, yes.
Okay. What was her demeanor at that point?
She was very, she was in the bed. She was holding on to her phone. She was terrified.
Was she screaming?
No.
Did you provide her any comfort?
Yes. I told her that I was going to go out. I told Kaylee that I was going to go out with them and I was going to find John. And I promised her that everything would be okay.
At some point you left Kaylee?
Yes.
Where did you go?
I went back downstairs and then we went out to look for John.
Before you left John's house that morning, did the defendant show you anything?
Yes. When we were out in the driveway, I had thought it was when we went in, but I think it might have been when we came out. But regardless, at one point when we were in the driveway at Meadows, Karen showed myself and Kerry Roberts the cracked taillight.
Did you or Miss Roberts get close to the taillight at that point?
Yes, we walked over and the taillight was missing pieces.
Did Miss Roberts have any comment about it?
Yes, Miss Roberts.
So she had a comment. Next question.
Okay. What was Miss Roberts' demeanor at that point?
She was frustrated with Karen. Had said that had said that Karen basically was telling her to shut up. You were so drunk, you could have hit anything last night. And then Kerry, I remember just thinking, all right, let's go. And I remember Kerry thinking, well, someone's going to get.
You what Kerry,
oh, sorry.
We don't want to think what somebody thought.
Okay.
I want to know what you heard and what you saw.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. At some point when you were looking at the taillight with missing pieces with the defendant and Miss Roberts, did you see Miss Roberts point anything out?
Yes.
Share that with us.
She pointed a piece that was sticking out and was concerned that someone was going to catch their coat or something on it.
And during that time when the defendant is showing you the taillight with missing pieces, was she saying anything about it?
No, I don't. Not that I can recall right now.
You mentioned at some point she was saying, did I or could I have hit him after you left John's house? Was that in the car or before you got in the car?
I know for a fact it was definitely in the car, was one of the times, yes.
Now, Miss Roberts' car is parked behind the defendant's car in John's driveway.
Yes.
Was there a decision made to take one or two cars?
One car.
What was the plan?
The plan was to get into Carrie's car and to go and look for John. I wanted to go thinking, let's go to Tom Beatty's, but Miss Reed was pretty adamant that we go to Fairview first.
You said that at times there was some arguing or bickering, or Miss Roberts was raising her voice to the defendant?
Yes.
Who made the decision to go to Fairview?
Ultimately, Carrie said, all right, we'll go there, almost like to shut her up.
When you got in the car, where was everybody? When you got into Kerry Roberts' car, where was everybody sitting?
Carrie was driving. I was in the front and passenger. Karen was in the back, in the middle, kind of peeking her head through between us.
I want you to take us through the ride from John's house at Meadows until you first get to Fairview. So as you pull out of or Kerry Roberts pulls out of John's driveway, what is the mood inside that car?
I'd say it was starting to get tense because Karen was just continuously screaming. Kerry was trying to focus on driving, and Karen's behavior in the back of the car was a bit erratic.
When you say erratic, can you just give some detail what you mean by that?
Yes, she would go from sitting back to leaning up in between us, and she would yell Kerry's name 3 times. Then she would yell my name's three times. And then she would yell, could I hit him? Did I hit him? Over and over again.
When she was repeating these questions or phrases that she was yelling, did you respond in any way?
I don't believe I did, no.
How about Kerry?
Kerry was telling her to shut up and to buckle up.
Was she buckled?
I don't believe so.
You began your drive from Mr. O'Keefe's home at Meadows to Fairview. Is the weather getting better?
No, it's getting worse.
Is the visibility still difficult?
It was terrible.
As you began that drive to Fairview, was there anything that you were doing on the way?
Yes, I was just kind of looking out the window intently to see if I saw anything.
What were you looking for?
I guess John, which I know it sounds crazy, but I didn't know where the hell he was.
Did you have any difficulty seeing from the car the side of the road?
Yes.
Did you see what direction Ms. Roberts was looking when she was driving?
Well, she, it was hard because she needed to focus on driving because the conditions were that bad.
Did you have a chance to see the defendant on that drive at all?
Yes.
Was she looking out the windows with you?
No, she was popping back and forth, and screaming.
Was it constant screaming, or did it change at all?
She would scream and then kind of sit back, and she'd almost be like quiet for a minute. It was like, okay, good, and then she'd start again.
In those quiet times, do you know what, if anything, she was doing?
I didn't know what she was doing that morning, no.
How long did it take to get to Fairview?
I don't know. I'm going to assume maybe 10 minutes, like with the weather, maybe 10 minutes. I'm not, give or take, approximately.
As you're approaching 34 Fairview Road, before you get there, is Fairview going to be on your left side, driver's side, or on the right side?
As we're pulling up, it's on the driver's side. Kerry's going to take a left down Fairview off of Chapman.
I want you to take us back to that morning, about 20 or 30 yards before you get to Fairview.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the car with Miss Roberts and the defendant?
Yes.
What's happening in the car?
Karen's is screaming, and at that point she had asked if John could be cheating on her and if John could be with Bella's mom.
And then what happens?
Didn't know what the hell she was talking about. I was like, what are you talking about? Why would he be with Bella's mom? And then Kerry said, well, do you think he could have walked to, there was another woman years before that John had dated who lived on the next street over to her house.
Okay. And as you approach that area before you get to the flagpole, does anything remarkable happen?
No.
Okay. What happens next?
As we're driving down the street, I just say to Kerry, because she doesn't know where my sister lives, oh, her house is just at the bottom of the street.
Visibility still difficult?
Yes, awful.
What happens next?
We continue, driving, and we're driving slowly past, the line of, I guess, bushes and the flagpole area. And all of a sudden, Karen's screaming from the back, there he is, or something to the effect of, there he is, let me out.
Did you know what she was talking about?
I had no idea.
When she was yelling that, did you look out the window?
Yeah, we had our eyes peeled out the window.
Did you see anything?
Nothing but snow.
How long was she yelling about whatever it is she was saying?
Kerry, she screamed, stop, so Kerry stopped pretty quickly. There he is. She could have kicked the door, like, let me out of here.
Okay. And when she was kicking the door, what were you doing?
I was just like, what the heck, what is going on?
What happens next?
She gets out. Kerry looks at me and said something, like she's batshit crazy.
Then what happens?
Then Kerry got out. Then I got out of the car, walked around the back of the car, and was walking like over to where I could see the girls were.
Now, at that point, you were in Kerry Roberts' car.
Yes.
It had its headlights on.
Yes.
Was it facing up the street of Fairview?
Well, we had come down the hill, so yes, up the street.
There was no other lighting in that area?
I do not believe so.
No fire engines or ambulances at that point?
No.
No police cars?
No.
Any street lights?
It was dark.
When you got out of the car, did you look towards the area of the flagpole?
Yes.
Could you see anything at that point?
No.
How close did you get to the area of the flagpole before you could first actually see something?
Well, I saw the shadowy figures of Kerry and Karen, and it wasn't until I got very close over to them that I saw Kerry removing the snow from John's face.
Is that the first moment you realized that was John O'Keefe on the ground?
Yes, it was.
When you see Kerry removing the snow from John's face, what do you do?
I was frozen. I was shocked. I couldn't believe that was him just lying there.
Tell us what you're seeing.
What do I see? I see Kerry just wiping the snow off. Karen had straddled him and had lifted her shirt and his shirt and was laying on him, and Kerry was screaming at her to get off of him. And I was literally just stunned. I mean, there he was.
What did John look like when you saw him?
I couldn't see much but his face, because the rest was snow and Karen was moving over him, but he just looked like just him, but just like frozen.
What did you do?
At first, I just stood there for a minute because I couldn't believe it was him. And then Kerry Roberts and I made eye contact. And I knew, I was like, all right, I'm going to call 911. But I think I knew in that moment that John, was dead.
Did you call 911?
Yeah, I started to call 911, and Kerry and Karen were just screaming. And so I walked back towards Kerry's car, and then Kerry was also yelling at me to go to the back of the car to look for blankets and towels. So as I was calling 911, I was at the back of the car looking for the towels and the blankets to bring over to Kerry. And while I was doing that, I believe 911 answered.
Did you speak to 911?
I did, yes.
Did you get the towels and blankets that Kerry had requested?
I did, yes.
After your phone call with 911 and you had the towels and blankets, tell us what happens next.
So after I called 911, I went back over to Kerry, Karen, and John. And at that point, Kerry asked if I would take over compressions. So she got up and I started doing compressions, and Karen was doing mouth to mouth.
When you started doing compressions, were you touching John over his clothes or touching his skin?
I don't remember.
Did you at that point get a chance to touch John's body and see how it felt temperature-wise?
I just remember when I was doing the compressions, I don't really know how to explain it. It just felt very funny.
I'm sorry, very
what? It just wasn't like normal.
Why?
I don't. I can't think of how to describe the way it felt when I was trying to press down, but it was like resistance.
How long did you try to give compressions and give aid to John for?
Until the police came.
Mr. Brennan, why don't we end here?
Thank you.
All right, Ms. McKay, we're going to need you back tomorrow. You can stay. Okay. Jurors, that's it for today. I have to give you those same cautions. Please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case, please disregard it and let us know. And again, please be very careful with your social media. All right, we'll see you tomorrow morning.
We know from the body temperature on scene that his body is not frozen.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. See ya. Looks like we're going to hold tight for a little bit. My goat will arrive on Friday. Shelby, I'm glad you got a goat. Thank you very much. That is an affiliate link, and a tiny, tiny percentage of your purchase gets returned back to the company as a thank you from Amazon, so I appreciate you doing that. No cross today.
Could we close the doors, please?
May be seated.
So I know it's shifting gears, but I want to address, I
ARCA.
said I'd hear you today on the argument on the ARCA motion. Mr. Brennan, do you need a minute, or can you argue that?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, I was looking at my notebook. What issue would you like to address?
Your motion yesterday. We had the motion, and I told you that I would hear you on argument, and it's very brief. 10 minutes, please.
Your Honor, before we begin, my client needed to use the restroom.
Oh, I didn't notice she wasn't here.
Yes,
Okay.
if you could just have 5 minutes, she'll be right back.
Sure. All right. 5 minutes.
All right, please.
5-minute break, and then we go resume the ARCA discussion. The judge has not ruled on that. She's allowing Mr. Brennan to make a brief argument. She'll probably allow the defense to make an argument. She didn't allow the defense to question Crash Daddy 2. But the state didn't get much time with him either, so... Interesting. Can we get a bat emoji? I think you're going to have to combine two emojis. Do we have a bat somewhere? Look for a bat emoji, and then we've got the BS emoji. There's the bat. There it is. Green has found it. That's your emoji right there. We're not going to make a special one for bat guano. This is pretty good. That one's good as well, Lady Draconis. More traditional on the poop emoji there. Let's see. I distinctly recall, as we wait for trial to continue here, I distinctly recall the first time Jen McCabe testified in court. I said I thought she did a good job under direct. And then under cross-examination, I changed my opinion. I wonder if the same thing's going to happen. I will say this time, I think she did better on direct this time than she did last time. That her demeanor, her willingness to answer, her following along, I didn't sense any spite. I mean, we got a couple Jan things, but she didn't do it 3 times like she did last time. And it was interesting that she testified that she said Jan twice, and then Mr. Brennan said, so she said Jan 3 times. Then what? It's like, no, she said it 2 times, and then later on, Jen McCabe clarified that she said Jan, and said it 3 times. But that was an interesting little point there. But I do think that the AJ on cross-examination will bring out a different side of Jen McCabe that will be interesting to see. The reaction, watching the reaction on Karen Reed during this, you can see they don't like each other. It's very apparent. She's prepared. I think she is more prepared this time. I think she's more conscious of her appearance before the jury, and maybe that will give her a more measured response when she's on cross-examination. But there are a couple differences in the testimony, and you can bet that every single one of them is going to be brought up in front of her saying, you didn't mention that last time. You never said that in the police report. We're going to hear a lot of that. We're going to hear a lot of that. And she doesn't like AJ at all. So the jury will know that by the end of her testimony. We're not going to have sweetness dripping honey from her voice as she interacts with AJ. Let's see. She comes across pretty good, very prepped, glammed up, ready for bear, I'm sure. She is. It's a good witness for the state so far. But partially how that witness is perceived by the jury includes how that witness presents on cross-examination. Because then we'll start seeing where loyalties lie. Ready for the ARCA decision, says Deanie Mullis Driver. Looks like we're going to possibly get that tonight. Let's see. Lacey says, I never watched the last time, so I have nothing to compare her with. That's the same with the jury. The jury is seeing this for the first time. Looks like we might be coming back to court any second now. Hold tight. We've got sound up, so we won't miss anything. But I wish I'd known about the goat. My 14-year-old and friends had to have that goat. We have the goats. We have the goat. Follow the link. All right. I'm concerned about the word for word, same as Carrie. This is a catch-22 for a witness. If you testify word for word exactly the same as you did a year ago, in a spontaneous manner, just to whatever questions asked, but each question has a word identical answer, that's going to be picked apart. And if you change what you say and testify a little differently, that also is going to be picked apart. I think it's safe to say that there is that the jury would give a little leeway for subtle differences or little inconsistencies in a recollection from one year to the next. But if there are major changes, major additions, especially I would say major additions over time, it seems strange that you would remember more over time. That takes us back to our first firefighter whose memory gets better with each passing year. By the end of his life, he'll be able to recall and act it all out second by second. It's not consistent with everyone else's experience in life. Let's see. Welcome to Cherry and Max. Welcome to the gallery. Thank you very much. Continued support. Love that yellow courthouse by your name. What we're waiting for right now, the judge has called it a quits as far as direct testimony goes. The jury has been dismissed for the day. What we're going to have next is brief argument, no more than 10 minutes from the prosecution regarding the ARCA motion that the prosecution has made. Now, realize the judge found that they had not been a violation, and now there's a motion from the state saying, here's what we propose you do. So let's go there now.
We're back in session. You may be seated.
All right, Mr. Brennan, I'll hear you.
Your Honor, in light of yesterday's hearing with the ARCA witnesses, the Commonwealth is going to ask the court to preclude the ARCA witnesses from testifying both about any new testing and any new opinions, and secondly, from testifying about their original opinions turned over in a report prior to last year's trial.
Full exclusion.
To be brief, what we learned or confirmed is that we do not have all of the discovery of communications. There was a court order for the ARCA witnesses to provide Your Honor with all of their information, phone records, text messages, communications about this case. Instead of providing their information to the court, they instead chose to send it to the defense, and then it was summarized and provided by the defense to the court and to the Commonwealth. It appears to me that is not in compliance with the court's order. What we learned during the hearing yesterday is that Dr. Wolf admittedly destroyed over 100 text messages. Now, he mentioned that he changed phone carriers, but then later admitted that he actually intentionally, for no apparent reason, destroyed the text messages in this case. And so what is left for Your Honor to look at is a summary of phone records from the defense and ARCA's information that is passed through the defense to the court. You do not have the text messages. You do not have the content of the text messages. There is no summary of the conversations, dozens and dozens of calls between the defense and the experts. It is difficult to believe that all of those text messages and all of those phone conversations dealt with simply logistics. In fact, we later learned during the questioning of Dr. Rentschler, there is much more involved than simply logistics. But to get back to Dr. Wolf, he did not disclose to the court that he was communicating and having conversations on Signal. How odd. An expert using Signal. Never used it before. Dr. Rentschler said would not use Signal, never use Signal. But Signal, as we know, is an application that does not create a record of communications. Dr. Wolf maintained on his direct that everything he did was logistics, even when we showed him the direct examinations with comments that asked for input from the defense to questions in a way that would be advantageous to the defense and to thwart the Commonwealth. Dr. Wolf actually still continued to testify that that was simply procedure and logistics, never admitting the fact that there was, in fact, conversations or information exchanged about bettering the presentation for the defense. Inevitably, I asked him about the sequestration order and how evasive he was. You simply have to compare him to Dr. Rentschler, who was quite candid. An hour or 45 minutes with Dr. Wolf, difficult getting a straight answer. Dr. Rentschler told us more in 5 minutes than Dr. Wolf told us his entire examination. And what we unfortunately learned is that during the trial, when this court had a sequestration order, information was being passed to the experts about witness testimony, in this case, unknown to the Commonwealth, unknown to the court, information, particular information, not general information, witness testimony, issues in the case. We have no idea who is deciding or identifying the issues and who the advantage is given to in describing those issues. But that is witnesses being prepped through an intermediary. So we know the Department of Justice, at least, is violating the order, helping the witnesses along, and then they testify unbeknownst to the Commonwealth that they have this information, but obviously is reflected in the testimony. In addition, I've provided some clips to Your Honor for review.
Yes, do you want me to mark these as an exhibit?
I do.
Okay, so this was an exhibit from yesterday. I did have the opportunity to look at them.
I suggest that the relationship was not resigned to mere logistics. And so from that subterfuge, what we stand with today is that we know that the witnesses were well prepared. We know that there was not true independence. And what we know is that they are refusing to provide the necessary information to support their original opinions that they gave at the first trial. They cited that it was a protective order. Perhaps it is. That has nothing to do with the issue. By calling the ARCA witnesses as their witnesses, they then have the obligation to comply with Rule 14. Unlike the first trial, where the Commonwealth had no ability to do any testing, review, vet the reliability of the information, properly prepare for cross-examination, this trial, that should not occur. Just because it happened last trial and the Commonwealth was disadvantaged does not mean it should happen this trial. And that is precisely why I began moving for discovery in this case early on. Inevitably, if these witnesses cannot provide information because it's under a protective order, it may not be the defendant's fault in its inception, but it is their problem and difficulty because they chose to hire the ARCA witnesses. They could have chosen any witnesses they want. Rule 14 is not obviated because they made a strategic decision to call the ARCA witnesses. So now going into this trial, even Dr. Rentschler admitted that an expert should have time, in their opinion, a month or more, to review the raw materials. It's not enough simply to have a report, as Attorney Alisi preached during his argument. We should have the opportunity to go through the raw data, the history, the videos, determine whether there's any failed testing. We don't have that benefit. And so my position has changed, that those early opinions should not come in because we have no ability to fairly cross-examine. As for the new opinions, the report may not be done till May 7th. We are in the middle of trial. Concedingly by the defense, or at least their witnesses, it takes a month to go through the discovery. When I filed my motion on the eve of trial that we would be unable to prepare or we would want a continuance in this, given our scheduling, our experts will not be able to look at this material. Our expert is away until after the first week of May. He is going to be testifying shortly after. He will have no ability to digest this enormous amount of materials, vet whether it's accurate or not, conduct tests to combat it if he thinks that it's inaccurate or unfair. And so the discovery violations, regardless of the state of mind, are upon the defendant. There is no exception that you used ARCA witnesses. There is no exception that you hired somebody that used to be under a federal protective order. They chose them, and I would suggest it seems strategically. When we noticed we'd have new experts in October, the defense from past experience, and probably other experience, but we know from this case, knows the process. They would have to file a TUI letter and wait for a response. And yet they waited until February to seek permission, which then extended their permission past February into March, and then they didn't even start the review until late March. And so it's fundamentally unfair. We should not be placed in the position of cross-examining experts without the fair ability, as any participant, defendant, Commonwealth, any participant would have in a case, to consider and then to rebut. And so for that reason, I ask you to exclude both the new opinions and new testing, and also to exclude the earlier opinions that we will never, at this point, receive the proper discovery with to prepare.
I don't think he's going to get both. I think he's going to get the last.
Mr. Lassie, I only have one question for you. So would you stand, please? You're arguing this, right? This was your motion. So my question is, how do I reconcile the fact that 100 text messages were deleted by counsel? And we heard yesterday counsel's preferred method of dealing with Dr. Wolf was via Signal. How do we reconcile that with the Massachusetts Rules of Professional Conduct 1.15? I don't see how you reconcile that, where all correspondence related to the matter, whether in physical or electronic form, must be saved for 10 years minimum. How do you reconcile that? How do I reconcile that?
Should I go to the podium?
Right there, and I expect a short answer.
The short answer, Your Honor, is the rule that you're citing has absolutely no applicability to this proceeding. Can I finish my answer, Your Honor?
Right ahead.
Has no applicability. That rule is intended to be between an attorney and the client. The court has no jurisdiction to enforce that rule.
I agree. That's a different body, but I'm asking you how I reconcile that when I'm trying to figure this out. Mr. Lessie, you know what? You're going to win this, so why don't you just let me make my ruling, okay? So I understand there have been repeated violations of the reciprocal discovery orders and my orders, repeated and deliberate. But, and Mr. Brennan, I understand completely the Commonwealth's argument, completely the ambush that has been set upon here. However, a defendant's right to a fair trial is paramount to everything. So I'm going to allow the ARCA witnesses to testify. I am going to allow what I expect to be a very robust cross-examination. And I'm going to allow them to testify to everything that they said up until yesterday. So you'll get the report May 7th. And I know that's late. And if you need anything as a result of that being late, I'll hear you on whatever motion you have. But that's where we stand. And I expect counsel to comply with all rulings and rules of the court and all rules of professional conduct. And no more nonsense. Let's just try this case. All right? That's it. I'll see you tomorrow.
All rise in the court, please.
Wow, what a plot twist. She hated every word of the ruling that she just issued. She is so frustrated because the law is on defense side here. They're like, yeah, that rule does not apply. Does not apply. So Yeah, you may have prevented us from saying ARCA in the opening statements, but everything is coming in during the trial. Every word of it. What an amazing ruling. I thought for sure she was going to keep part of it out, the new ruling. But props to Judge Beverly Cannoni for making the right ruling in spite of her personal feelings there. And she let them show afterwards where she said, look, I am sick of this, okay? I did rule, she says. I did rule that you guys violated discovery rules, that you didn't, that you've been playing fast and loose a little bit. But in this case, you win. I only want to know this one thing from you, how do I reconcile this? And she knew what the answer was. And as soon as he said that answer, she's like, you're right. Sit down. Let me just rule, you win. That was amazing. That was so good. I was not expecting that. That was she had to let them win. Karen Reed wins on appeal, hands down. If Beverly keeps it out, yes, very much so. If that was something that she said no to, that would be highlighted in bold. It would be the highlight. It would be the headline of an appeal, and you wouldn't have to read anything beyond that. That would be a huge violation of the defendant's rights. And, it's hard to argue that, the Department of Justice was the one in the wrong here, because who do you work for? Who's the big boss when it comes to that? We need a song, says Camilla. Oh my goodness. That is wild. I think it might be a little bit wrong for her to have played her cards like that, because she issued that ruling through clenched teeth. That was extracted from her as you would extract blood from a turnip. But she had to do it. There was nothing else she could do. Mr. Brennan probably misjudged the situation. Probably came in there thinking that he actually had an advocate on the bench and went big. Instead of just saying, keep out this new ruling, he's like, and keep out the original one. So he swung for the fences, and he struck out entirely, got nothing out of this. He won't, aside from a robust cross. And a robust cross, what does that mean? That means that she's going to allow him to treat the ARCA witnesses much like he treated them during this hearing, which was bad. Let me just say it. It was bullying. It was too much. Now Brennan has a choice to make. Do I do this in front of the jury with Fabio from ARCA? Obviously doesn't have long hair, but you get a Crash Daddy on the stand who loves his job and has, no dog in this fight and just wants to talk about the science and love every minute of it. And do you try to put the screws to him where you've got nothing on him? You've got nothing on him. This is a massive, massive win for Karen Reed's defense team on this one. This is huge. This is an area where the defense will be able to introduce a ton of doubt because it goes to the very core of the Commonwealth's argument, the theory of the whole case, that she backed into him when he flew and pirouetted across the yard and fell by the flagpole. And they're going to look at that and laugh in their face and look good doing it. Oh my goodness. That ruling seems like it almost needs verdict music. Oh my goodness. I think the jury's going to love the Crash Daddies. I think they will. They testify well. They come in there, and I'm not sure how tied their hands are going to be about talking about, we were hired by an outside agency. Remember how it sort of was like cryptic, and we're sort of dancing around the issue, saying that we were hired by a third party, a three-letter government agency who shall not be named, but is not the state, not the Commonwealth, not the county. It's some other government agency. It's like the only thing we can't do is say the letters, right? I don't know how they're going to go into that again, but it gives huge credibility to them, basically saying the feds hired us in some other investigation of this exact situation, not related to this. Not related to this court, but the feds outside in the investigation did it in relation to this event. It's gonna be wild. This is a huge blow And not only that, it's a blow to the Commonwealth because they get very little time. They'll have like a week for their expert to prep the response to the crash daddies and the physics. How do you argue with the physics when somebody up there on the stand can literally write out the formulas for you and teach you the physics as you walk through it? It's a big deal. Does it end the case? Does it break the case? No, it does not. Can the state still get a Commonwealth get a conviction? Yes, they definitely still can. So it's not an end all. But had this gone the other way, it would have been much more difficult for the defense to look at this and say, I can see a jury having reasonable doubt or finding her not guilty because it's not proven. This introduces all that needed reasonable doubt there. The defense needs to be clear, says Mrs. R.A. Hey, how you doing, Jen? Needs to be clear that it's government who hired them and not some other third party. That was a problem for the last jury. They were limited by the court order what they could say about that, and possibly by their contract with the FBI. So I can't. I tell you, I do not have a dog in this fight, right? If anything, I would say I lean more on the Commonwealth side than defense at this point in the trial. As far as if I'm a new juror looking at this trial, I lean more towards Commonwealth than the defense. But I love a judge making a rule that's right even when they don't like it. So huge props to Beverly Cannoni. No size given during the issuing of that too. I like it. I like this type of drama in court that plays out. This was a hard fought battle for months. Brennan has been building this case to get to this moment, to get the win that he sought today for months, laying the groundwork and everything. And we're dismissing the fact that he is literally accusing the defense of doing everything that the Commonwealth has already done, right? He's like, look how absurd it is that you're allowing this evidence in when they've deleted communications, they changed their phones for some random reason. It's like, it's not like we took the phone and hid it and threw it away in an Air Force Base garbage where no one could have. Okay, your guys did the same thing, only they did it in a nefarious way. The state is not, coming here smelling like roses, but that was a moment I was not expecting. I was expecting a ruling that was more restrictive on the Commonwealth, even partially more restrictive, mostly around that new report. But I think the fact of the matter is, when you look at what the defense has said about this report, about calling this new witness, about doing the TUI notification and everything, that where they had to follow certain steps and get the court's permission to bring in an expert, and there were deadlines, and they had to wait for approvals and everything. They couldn't have done it much faster than they did. I mean, we're talking, it could have been a couple days here or a couple days there. They couldn't have done it much faster, and a lot of the delay is on the judge for waiting before she authorized it. So I think she knows the defense is right, and more than that, I think she knows that it was probably wrong for her to rule on the disclosure violation previously, because that was about the same thing. When they didn't produce something, that now she's gone all the way through and found out that it doesn't exist and they couldn't have produced it. I don't know. Anyway, that was can we replay it? It's we probably could. Let me go back just a little bit and see what happens here. Okay, we're going to get the end of Brennan's argument. Right here. Let's go here. Ready? Okay.
Any participant, defendant, Commonwealth, any participant would have in a case to consider and then to rebut. And so for that reason, I ask you to exclude both the new opinions and new testing, and also to exclude the earlier opinions that we will never, at this point, receive the proper discovery with to prepare.
Okay, right there he asked for both. That's the big whammy. That's why he went big. He said, keep out the new stuff, which was what his original motion was. His new change from that motion was, I asked for you to keep them both out, which was basically, don't let ARCA testify, period. And then here we've got defense, who's Mr. Alessi is dying to get up and talk. He wants so badly to talk. And look at how the judge lays this out.
All right, thank you. Mr. Alessi, I only have one question for you.
Okay, that has got to be awful. Okay, defense is like, oh crap.
So would you stand, please? You're arguing this, right? This was your motion. So my question is, how do I reconcile the fact that 100 text messages were deleted by counsel? And we heard yesterday counsel's preferred method of dealing with Dr. Wolf was via Signal. How do we reconcile that with the Massachusetts Rules of Professional Conduct 1.15? I don't see how you reconcile that, where all correspondence related to the matter, whether in physical or electronic form, must be saved for 10 years minimum.
I'm just looking at this again. I think she thought she had him. And Mr. Alessi won the battle. Now, she says, I've just got one question. And there's nothing in that question about ARCA. Zero. Okay? ARCA did nothing wrong. She's saying, I'm talking about the messages you deleted on your side, where you said you didn't have copies of text messages, and you talked to ARCA with Signal, which keeps no record. How do you reconcile that with this rule, Massachusetts Rule of Professional Conduct, what is it, 1.15? This governs the safekeeping of client property and requires lawyers to keep it separate from their own. It includes maintaining contemporaneous and complete records of all trust property, including funds, IOLTA accounts. Recent amendments addresses a couple more things. Basically, keeping all the information. Okay, it's and for 10 years, right? Listen to this.
How do you reconcile that? How do I reconcile that?
Should I go to the podium?
Right there, and I expect a short answer.
He's like, can I go to the podium and speak? She's like, no, don't move from where you are and tell me, and it better be quick.
The short answer, Your Honor, is the rule that you're citing has absolutely no applicability to this proceeding. Can I finish my answer, Your Honor?
Right ahead.
Has no applicability. That rule is intended to be between an attorney and the client. The court has no jurisdiction to enforce that rule.
I agree. That's a different body, but I'm asking you how I reconcile that when I'm trying to figure this out. Mr. Alessi, you know what? You're going to win this, so why don't you just let me make my ruling, okay? So I understand there have been repeated violations of the reciprocal discovery orders and my orders, repeated and deliberate. And Mr. Brennan, I understand completely the Commonwealth's argument, completely the ambush that has been set upon here. However, a defendant's right to a fair trial is paramount to everything. So I'm going to allow the ARCA witnesses to testify. I am going to allow what I expect to be a very robust cross-examination. And I'm going to allow them to testify to everything that they said up until yesterday. So you'll get the report May 7th. And I know that's late. And if you need anything as a result of that being late, I'll hear you on whatever motion you have. But that's where we stand. And I expect counsel to comply with all rulings and rules of the court and all rules of professional conduct. And no more nonsense. Let's just try this case. All right, that's it. I'll see you tomorrow.
All rise in the court, please.
Wow. She called it ambush. Trial by ambush is a hot button word that's often used by someone who says something's been sprung on them and it's not fair. This is trial by ambush. That's not allowed. And she says, I realize this ambush has been set up. But basically she says it was set up in a way that I can't not allow it, which is amazing. I expect a robust cross-examination. This is going to be Brennan. Brennan gets to bring his A game, okay? Bring his A game, and maybe they're going to go into the deleted messages. Maybe that's what she's talking about, that she's going to allow you. So you talked with them on Signal and these messages are gone, and that you talk to them on text message, maybe that's coming in. Maybe the jury gets to hear this. But honestly, the witness, look how he did last time. Did he seem flustered at all under Brennan's attack? I didn't see it if he did. I doubt that the jury's going to see it. And usually when we have a hearing like this, it plays out a little bit better in front of the jury than it does in front of just in the little hearing. So I don't know. That's going to be amazing. This is something you're not going to want to miss when it comes to the ARCA day in court. Let's see. Is there anything else we needed to? Let's see. We're going back a little bit. Anything? Back to the OnlyFan. Jen McCabe. I think she did well today on direct. Got a little more information this time on a couple issues. Not enough that I want to point them out right now and talk about them, but talking about, I think there were a couple other names mentioned about who she might have called that morning that I didn't hear the first go around, or it didn't strike me that she said the first go around. Whoa. Was direct finished? Direct finished of Jen McCabe? No. We haven't got to cross yet. So cross will come tomorrow, and it's going to come early, honestly. We're just about done. She's got a little bit of testimony to give about that morning, about the being in the car, about the phone call, about going back and forth to the body, about the, if she saw the phone, when the ambulance showed up. We're going to go over through that part of the story, but it's basically all the testimony we expect moving forward is probably between now and then. They might be allowed to bring in some testimony about harassment through Jen McCabe. That might come in on rebuttal because we're going to see an aggressive AJ go after the witness, and then I think on rebuttal that will come in. Tony, thank you very much. Appreciate you. Jen made a big deal about not being the leader. That, to me, is the Commonwealth addressing a weakness in her personal presentation. She does say that that Carrie was sort of in charge. Carrie was leading the show, and she was just going along with it. And Carrie was telling people to shut up and sit down and what to do and where to go. The judge ruled correctly. I 100% agree. 100% agree. Why didn't they run to the Albert's house for help? That might be a question that's asked of her on cross, especially since she was just in that house the night before, and knows that there are people in there who might have blankets, who might have things. Why just run to the car? Those are legitimate questions that might be asked. We should be done early tomorrow. Are we done early? Is this a part day tomorrow? This is the spice Lori's enchiladas didn't have. The harassment from Turtle Boy was from Turtle Boy and shouldn't be allowed in this trial. Well, he was allowed to be put on the witness list, and I think we might get some of that, at least some mentions in there. And I think we had a mention last time in trial as well, so it might come in again. I think that's it. I think that sets it up for an amazing day tomorrow, honestly. Tomorrow is Wednesday, hump day, so if you're here early enough, you'll hear me do the hump day yell, which will get you up and going for the day. We're, of course, going to sing happy birthday to anyone who has a birthday tomorrow as well. So if that's you, get on the birthday list now so we don't miss you tomorrow. Other than that, it is 4:30 Eastern time. And We'll see what happens. What a finish to the day. What a surprise finish. All right. Okay. Need to find my music. It's on a hot button, different tab. There we go. Can we have 3 hump day yells? No, we just get the one. Just get the one. Thank you all for watching. If you're here for the first time, thank you very much. I appreciate you being here. I realize that we all have different opinions on this. I'm often wrong. I may be wrong this time as well. That's okay. If you have a different opinion than me, welcome. Thank you for sharing it in chat respectively. I appreciate that. I learn a lot from all of you. I appreciate you guys being kind to each other. As I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of people in this community, in this chat community, and on the internet in general that are going through some heavy things. And it might not be public, or it might be public. But sometimes we can't see that. It just helps to be kind to people, give people the benefit of the doubt when you can. It goes a long way. It goes a long way. And you never know, it might just make somebody's day and change the world. If you can steal something from Arms Family Homestead. With that said, tonight when you go home, please hug the people you love, smile at someone, make their day just a little bit better. And please stay safe to go live again tomorrow morning, 8:30. Once again, it will be day 7, part 1 of the Karen Reed trial, round 2. There we go. I think I got all the numbers in right. You guys have an absolutely fabulous evening. We will see you tomorrow. Be good to each other. Bye-bye.
In front of the Walmart.